Hello, everyone, and good morning. And how much morning it is for you really quite depends on where you are this morning. We are coming to you live with the footage of the Vatican from Pope Francis's funeral. And I am Bree, host of Pontifacts, and joining me is my co-host Fry.
Hello.
Hello. And Gregg, our editor and host of two other very, very related podcasts at the moment, Popeular History and Cardinal Numbers. Hello, Gregg.
Yes, hello Bree, hello Fry. And I saw a bell ringing right as we started, so of course that's waking everybody up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we are here live from our various homes, watching people live from the Vatican.
Yes. It's 10 a.m. in Rome. It is 1 a.m. here. So
3
bear with
a.m.
us.
here, 4 a.m.
Yes, we're representing quite a variety of different time zones here as we watch the live feed. Just to give you guys an idea of what to expect, like what we're actually going to do here is we're going to watch. We're going to talk about the different things that we see. We're going to talk about how this funeral is different. Right off the bat, I see plenty to talk about. And Gregg is going to be running his Adopt a Cardinal program. So Gregg, this is definitely something that we'll probably have to go over a couple of different times during the live stream as people come and go. Also, great. I actually see that you are people here. If you want to say hello and let us know where you're watching from, do that so that we know that you're actually awake and with us this morning. But on that note, Gregg, tell us about Adopt a Cardinal. What's happening?
Yes,
Do
so
people get involved?
Adopt a Cardinal is a long running, as in it's been going on for maybe 2-3 minutes now, program where you can adopt a cardinal in need of a patron, because all cardinals need patrons. This is Rome, and it does not run without patronage. There's actually no money involved because that sounded complicated and possibly illegal. But what how this works is you're watching this on YouTube, or presumably something that interfaces with YouTube. And generally speaking, you can put things in the chat there. So if you put the name of a cardinal in the chat and no one else has put that cardinal down for them, you have adopted a cardinal. Congratulations. There is not a lot of paperwork for this adoption. I cannot speak to their shots. I cannot speak to their housebreaking. But what I can say is that if they are elected Pope, you will get benefits as their patron in the way any traditional patronage system works. Such benefits include some sort of special title for presumably Pontifacts and Popeular History and Cardinal Numbers. That's 3 podcasts for the price of 1. Maybe a titular church. Who knows? We'll see what the budget is. Depends on how many viewers we get. But cardinals can only be picked by one person. And if you list a cardinal and they've already been claimed, don't worry, you haven't wasted your choice. It just doesn't count. Find a cardinal who is still available. How do you tell if a cardinal is still available? Well, there's a link that as soon as I get myself coordinated, you might hear some typing here, I'm going to put in the comments. So, yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, and we will revisit it a couple times.
Speaking of comments, we actually have some. So Noga F is watching from Jerusalem while trying to clean their kitchen. And Trocanero is listening in from Sweden. And Roland Barrett is calling in from Utah. So we have a whole variety of people. Some of you are in recently decent time zones for this. More than me. But you say, Gregg, you say long running, it's only been 2 or 3 minutes, but that's not entirely accurate. Fry and I already got to claim our cardinals.
We
Well,
did.
it's the patronage system. You get in on the ground floor unless someone got in on the ground floor below that. So yeah,
well, we should say who we actually.
I was gonna say, would you like to
claim.
name your cardinals and your reasoning?
Why do you want to go first?
Sure. I picked Pizza Balla because his name is silly, and not at all because he has politics that align to mine.
Ooh, we have our first claimant.
Yes,
But I will say
Tagle.
who I took first before anybody tries to take him from underneath me. I of course chose Cardinal Krajewski because he's my favorite, and I think he is a baller. I don't think he has much of a chance of being the next pope, mainly because Gabe and Papability Index tells me he's much too young for that, but he's still my favorite, so it's a long shot.
You could really
Gregg,
show the people how this works by putting it into the chat. If you want to be all official about it and give them
yes,
typing sounds to listen to. Give them the
okay.
real editing Pontifacts experience.
Well, that's usually your job to get rid of. So, oh, okay. So we have 2 claimants already. Gregg, do you want to handle the claimants, or do you want me to read them out to you?
Yeah. So it looks like we have a Tagle claimed by Roland Barrett, I believe.
A
Like
good choice.
the chat names are already public, right? So I'm not like doxing anyone.
No,
Um,
you're fine.
okay, good. I thought a little bit about how this would work, and that's usually the best way to do things. And Arborelius, yes, the
Mm-hmm.
Swedish cardinal. Well, possibly one of, I think the only Swedish cardinal. Might
Yeah,
actually.
no.
Oh, you know what? I believe he's the only Swedish cardinal since the Reformation, because that was, and I guess still is, the thing.
Oh, and we have James. James is chiming in from Edinburgh this morning. Hello, James. And Anoga's trying to take the Patriarch of Jerusalem, but I got to tell you, that's who Fry took. So she scooped
Yes,
you.
yes,
We've got
yes.
some.
Unfortunately, Fry got in on the basement floor.
We have our first, like, we have some good Popeular candidates going first. Gregg, tell us what happens if someone actually picks the winning cardinal.
Yes. So if the cardinal that you adopt adopts a church, aka becomes the pope, then, or well, actually, you know what? Maybe we should make it also if they become an anti-pope. You get a special title there too. Although that would be very unfortunate. I'm not encouraging people to encourage anti-popes. Also, you're not allowed to participate in this in a cardinal. We had a whole thing about saying that if you had a red hat on, you couldn't participate, but people would then thought that maybe we would be getting political. So we're not doing that. But you
Yeah,
cannot
red
participate
hats and all.
if you're a cardinal. Just know that there's a conflict of interest. I am not here to put my thumb on the conclave, despite my obvious imperial credentials.
Trocanero points out, interestingly, that there has never been a Swedish or other Scandinavian cardinal before Arborelius. This is a pretty interesting fact. I think they, at one point, were talking about a cardinal for Iceland, but I think that fell through. I'm going to have to look into that. That being said, now that we actually have things that are happening, the funeral is just about starting to get underway. Now we're seeing the arrival of all of the dignitaries. We're seeing the crowds gathering into their final formation. Final formation sounds a bit like a transformer, but
I mean, the prophecy of the popes did end, right? I think is that the Irish president there? I think he's that guy.
I think so. We're seeing a lot of. It's funny because as a lot of dignitaries pass on the screen, I'm like, oh, I'll come back to that. But one thing I do want to discuss that we're already starting to see in the shots that are coming out of St. Peter's here is what we're looking at that's already different about this funeral. First off, there's been a lot of shots already of Pope Francis's casket, which notably has already been sealed. The rite of sealing the casket happened last night in Rome. So you can see it's here we go. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Livestream, for doing exactly what I was talking about. It has already been closed. What you will notice about this is this does not show the traditional 3-casket system that the popes usually have, that we would see, where they have a coffin of cypress which is then put within a lead or zinc coffin for preservation purposes. And then that is put into a third exterior coffin made out of oak. So Francis only has one coffin, and it is lined with zinc on the inside for the mandatory preservation factors, but it's a simple one level coffin. He's significantly pulling back from the excess and the luxury that we normally see. It is also being presented exactly as it is, flat right there. He is not being presented on a catafalque. He's not on a bier of any sort. There's no extra decoration around his casket. He's gone very simply. This was also true of the inside of the coffin. If you happened to see the many photos and footage that came out of him lying in state, he asked for no particular extra finery or excess. He even said he didn't want pillows, so it's just sort of gently and humbly lined. So right away, we're seeing things that represent Francis exactly as he was, exactly on brand, humble and just full of simplicity. So, with that, Gregg, is there anything you want to point out that you're seeing so far before I answer some comments and some questions here?
Yeah, hopefully my mic unmutes appropriately. I decided to mute myself real quick so that I could type, and then I realized I could mainly copy paste these names from the chat into my Adopt a Cardinal spreadsheet. But what was the question?
Is there anything you're seeing? Is there anyone you're seeing that you want to comment on in the crowd here, or as we get started, before we start talking about like the rituals of ceremonies or anything like that? Ooh, we're starting to see some cardinals.
We're starting to see some people who look like cardinals, but I don't believe they are cardinals. There are some false cardinals that kind of float around in these sorts of circumstances. I think sometimes the papal choir sort of gets some red that you usually expect to see on cardinals. But also, we will see how my accuracy is for identifying various cardinals, because I have primarily been, focusing on their lives and doing that in preparation for an audio form. So we'll see how far in I am over my skis, and feel free, if you see someone who you believe you can identify as a cardinal, to mention them in the chat, and I will give you credit for the attribution, or at least, point out what people are seeing. But I also will continue to keep an eye out. I know there have been cardinals while I've been looking at my spreadsheet.
Is the funeral going to be outside?
Yes.
Okay.
There's also going to be like a procession over to St. Mary Major, right?
Yes. So, oh gosh, there we go.
Not a cardinal.
Not a cardinal on the screen at the moment. So we'll say good morning to Carlos in Houston. Thanks for joining us, Carlos. And Noga asks, do we have any chance of a major split in the church and a serious anti-pope, aka one that will be recognized by at least 5% of the church? We were just discussing this before we went live, because in fact, yes, there has absolutely been some cardinals making exactly that sort of statement. And we have Cardinal Mueller, who is representing the Conservative Party, basically coming out and speaking very openly, saying that basically if the election doesn't go the way that the Conservatives want, they're very seriously considering a split.
I should say, to clarify, what I saw from Cardinal Mueller could somewhat reasonably be represented in that way. That's certainly how I interpreted it, but it does have the cover, as it were, of, if a conservative, traditional, what they described as orthodox pope is not elected. Those are the cardinals there, by the way.
Yeah, here we are.
So they will be more clear because they've got the pope hats in addition to the red. Normally, just a hint of red is enough to identify a cardinal in Rome, but there are times where you see more of that. There's also some other high-ranking positions where they do start to get the right to wear some red. Like I believe the Patriarch of Venice and Lisbon have certain privileges that basically they're allowed to dress exactly like a cardinal, even if they aren't officially a cardinal. The implication is yet, although those, if I'm recalling, are not sees that have been made cardinals under Pope Francis. He has kind of enjoyed, well, I don't know if he enjoyed it, but he certainly decided to, generally speaking, not as much focus on the actual like sees, like the particular, bishoprics that would normally be made cardinals. It seems like his focus has been more on the individuals. And for example, he has several times promoted someone who is under someone else, in the hierarchy that is not themselves a cardinal. So he's putting subordinates kind of technically above their superiors ecclesiastically, which there is a certain first shall be last sort of thing to that. But it's also, I think it's fair to say it's ruffled a number of feathers. Hence the not that there's, explicitly in the church, we should say, a conservative party, but there is, something you might describe as a, conservative or perhaps traditionalist bloc, right? There's certainly folks that tend to walk together and chat together, and I think it's fair to say, make plans together. That's natural in any large group that you have these different factions, and usually factions is a bad word. And in this case, well, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
And yet, factions within the church is something that our listeners will be incredibly familiar with, because this is not the first. This is a long-standing tradition. We have imperial factions. We have factions that represent the different nations. Okay. On that note, we are seeing the transition of Pope Francis's coffin right now. They are getting ready and prepared to move him. The cardinals, as we've seen, have come out and they've lined up, which I assume is in order of precedence here. Although in which order that was unclear for a moment. It looked like they were all just walking in a big circle.
I was going to have to be naming names like I was naming the other day when we were just going through all of the cardinal electors in order to say all the ones that are on the screen. Because when we were planning this out, I think we'd have maybe some more stray cardinal sightings. But it appears that they're largely going to be functioning as a group, which is fair. And I'm not as good with the backs of their heads. But maybe Arborelius is in there.
So Roland Barron asked, do we think that we could see a conservative cardinal from outside Europe becoming the Pope? I certainly think that's a possibility, especially when we look at the list of who's generally considered, Popeular in the Popeular. There are a fair number of conservative or like moderate to conservative leaning candidates that are from outside of Europe. Africa is quite well represented in that faction, with Sarah, of course, and Langlois and
Mbongo Basungu sort of led the charge, as it were, in the negotiations, basically, with Pope Francis after Fiducia Supplicans relating to blessing gay individuals.
Unions.
Yes. So technically avoiding blessing the unions themselves for theological reasons. But yes, permitting the blessing of, gay individuals, even, when they approach as a group, which folks are like, oh, well, that's, confusing. And, it's pretty confusing for the church to be refusing blessings to anyone. If you ask. That's all I'll say about that.
Yes.
That's probably not all I'll say about that, but that's what I'm saying about that for now.
So James says that he's going to adopt Cardinal Nichols, who would be the first British Pope since Adrian IV. So that would be an interesting choice.
Yes.
You'll have to update your list. We're actually getting cardinals claimed.
Yeah, and Noga F, just please note that the Cardinal Patriarch of Jerusalem, whose name you indicate you could not remember, Fry, I don't know if you've got your microphone available,
I
but
do. I'm
yes,
here.
could you remind us who the Patriarch of Jerusalem is?
Pizza Balla.
Yes, Pier
Oh.
Battista Pizzaballa, whose name I have sworn to say at every opportunity, so I don't know why I passed on that one.
I love these lines. They literally have railings they could go against.
I was just going to say James is commenting that some of these cardinals need military training because the lines aren't straight, and I was thinking exactly the same thing. It especially when you know that like the whole world is watching you right now. The absolute shamble of that line is
It was a little funny earlier
spectacular.
when you guys were talking about the Cardinals filing in, like
Mhm.
the altar servers or whatever you want to call them were like, you need to move down. You gotta
Well,
fit.
I think part of it is, like generally speaking, people are going to let the Pope do what he wants, and
Mhm.
right now there's no Pope, so who's going to tell the Cardinals what to do?
I also am curious as to
Some of
what
them do have military
exactly.
training, I believe.
Oh yes,
Yes,
certainly.
but
But
you
I,
can't
I
have one person in a straight line.
exactly. I do also wonder what exactly the criteria here would be to be a papal pallbearer, because they are not necessarily showing quite outright what their position is in the church. I assume that based on the nature of the position, that these might be Swiss guards.
I think
But
I think there might still be there's a group called the Papal Gentlemen
oh, that's
that would often
right.
do stuff
Yes.
like that. I think they
Yes.
may still be kicking around sufficiently.
I have
Members
to
of the papal
assume this
household,
coffin is way less heavy than a normal Pope coffin.
especially because it's one coffin.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. When we're talking about the triple coffin, for those who haven't heard our episode on the main feed about papal funerals and that triple coffin practice, they usually, when completed, all three coffins together weigh about half a ton. So I assume that whatever the nature of Pope Francis's coffin here, that it doesn't weigh nearly as much.
Mm.
Now, we are hearing some singing as we get officially underway here. We do, in fact, have a list of the full readings that will be done today as part of the funeral. So, do you have any commentary on that, Greg? I know I sent it to you to have a look over.
Oh,
I
you did?
can read out. Okay, if you didn't see it yet, I can give a reading, or I'll read out quickly what exactly we're expecting to see here. Some of it may or may not make sense unless you are very invested in the liturgy. But what we have
Yes.
right now, what is happening right now, is the entrance antiphon. And then we will have the penitential act and something called collect.
Yes.
Then we
So these are
have
normal components of a
mhm,
mass. In this
yes.
case, a funeral mass.
Then we have the Liturgy of the Word, first reading in the Acts of the Apostles. Then we'll have a responsorial psalm, a second reading of Paul to the Philippians, the acclamation before the gospel, a homily, the Liturgy of the Eucharist, which includes the offertory chant, the prayer over the offerings, Eucharistic prayer number 3, the
Ooh,
communion rite,
they're not
the
doing the Roman canon. Interesting.
no, but that's not
Yes.
particularly surprising for
I do
Francis.
have I do have this pulled up now, and
Okay.
I will say they did Eucharistic prayer number 3 for Pope Benedict, which was
Mhm.
surprising because I
Yes,
was fully expecting Roman canon on that one. But
certainly.
yes, because that Roman canon would be the most traditional and longest uh, prayer.
Yes. But I get that again, that was probably a decision that was made by Pope Francis to emphasize his the direction in which he wanted to maintain the reading of the liturgies, so to speak. After the Eucharistic prayer number 3, we will have the communion rite, the communion antiphon, the prayer after communion, and what is called the final commendation and farewell, which will include an introduction, the prayer of the church in Rome, the prayer of the Eastern churches, a responsory, and an antiphon.
Yes, and just to clarify, hopefully I've got my mic back on. I'm switching it on and off, and that turns out to be a bad idea because I can never tell whether you're going to hear me when I talk. So I'll probably just leave it on, and we'll have some typing sounds periodically as I work on this.
This is a live stream. We're doing it live, guys.
Yep,
It's
that's the way
live.
it goes. I'm not editing this out. But I wanted to note that when we talk about like Eucharistic prayers, it's not just one individual prayer. So this would be sort of the collection of prayers used during that, kind of second half of the Mass, as they, I'm just going to go ahead and say, work on, the Eucharist, right? The bread and the wine that, theologically and as a Catholic, I would say, really turn into the body and blood of Jesus Christ.
Transubstantiation.
Yes, indeed. Not to be confused with any other sort of substantiation. And we are very specific about that. But it's okay if you don't understand, because it is one of the less intuitive bits of theology. And it also is complicated in its simplicity and simple in its complicatedness.
Complexity?
Yes,
So
thank you.
What's the
4 a.m.
temperature here? As
In
they're
Rome?
as they're all outside.
It's hot today. I know that was one of the things. Well, it's not hot yet. It's about 60.
You mentioned it's hot, and suddenly I'm seeing like a Saudi dress delegation.
And about 61 degrees Fahrenheit right now, but it's going to get up to about 73. This was something that they were actually quite concerned about, and one of the reasons that it was generally thought that Pope Francis would be embalmed for his lying in state, because it's Rome, and April, it's already starting to get hot. I do want to point out a couple comments we've had here as well. James said, I get that he's going for simplicity, but it does kind of look like they just dumped the coffin on the floor. It does, very much so. And there was a shot a moment ago from just the foot of the coffin, and it had sort of a very IKEA Build-A-Brick sort of look about it. So that was interesting. And Carla... Yeah, a little bit flat pack. Not that I'm complaining. Again, I love the simplicity and the humility that he's at least attempting to convey. While, I mean, look around, look at how many people are here. This is still, as much as Francis wanted to be the funeral of a pastor rather than a world leader. Ooh, is that Tagle there?
Oh, and those lines are absolutely killing me. It probably is Tagle.
And also Carlos asked, are all funerals for popes outside? What if it rains, and does it keep going regardless? Yes, they do attempt to make all of the funerals outside, weather permitting. So if the weather shifted, I mean, at this point, because everything is already set up and everyone is already there,
looking pretty blue.
Yeah, they would absolutely stick with this and
just
continue
power
going
through.
Yeah.
As they're filing all these cardinals out as slow as we can go, like, then they'll be like, no, we all have to go back in.
These are old men, Fry.
If that is the papal gentleman, I think they would be one of the sort of last vestiges of the papal states, is my sort of recollection, sort of that administration being continuous. I mean, obviously there's the Roman Curia, the overall, sort of admin of the church, did, kind of carry on through, but things were certainly much reduced during the period called the Roman Question, when, basically the papal states had fallen, and there was the question of what to do about the Pope, which was kind of summarized as what to do with Rome. And well, the Pope got a little bit of Rome called the Vatican.
Ah, yes.
Oh, wow.
Bringing up Mussolini first things in the morning.
Oh, yes.
The crowd goes way back.
And to circle back for a moment here, though, if a funeral was to be happening during a time when they knew they were going to experience inclement weather, we would assume that the funeral would be moved to the Paul VI reception hall, which is exactly what they do for the papal audiences.
These
and
lines
any
are
sort
killing
of
me.
I know, the lines are brutal. Which would be wild to see, because that when I was in Rome for the papal audience that I went to meet Pope Francis and just to see all of that, our papal audience was moved into the Paul VI reception hall. And that was just like a regular summer papal audience with the usual crowds that draws every week. And they had moved it inside because it was hot, middle of summer, early August. And that place on a regular Wednesday was absolutely packed to the gills, to the point that there wasn't seating for everybody. So when you look at these crowds and think about what a different experience that papal funeral would be if they did have to limit to an inside venue, that would be an entirely different thing.
Yes. I will note that I thought I was on a substantial delay for some reason. And it turns out I had just bumped the bottom slider bar. That's probably Cardinal Ray, by the way.
Yes.
Yes, since he's the principal celebrant.
Did you pause yourself?
Yeah. So I basically ended up making myself a few minutes behind. Yes, that's definitely Cardinal Ray.
Yeah. So notably, for those who are joining us and don't know who Cardinal Ray is the dean of the College of the Cardinals, and he would normally be the person who would be leading the conclave, the upcoming conclave. This is the man who would be the Ray
highest ranking cardinal
in the conclave movie. However, Cardinal Ray and his vice dean are both too old to be present in the actual conclave. So we still are a little unclear. They haven't made an official ruling of who's going to run the conclave, although
I think they haven't, like, I haven't seen it announced, but I believe it is definitely going to be Paroline. I've seen that from other places. I haven't seen that specifically from the Vatican.
Yes.
But that's what my sort of initial looking suggested, and I saw that from a few sources that I trust.
It is suspected that Paroline will certainly be the one to run it, but because they haven't actually set a date or made any official noting yet about the conclave procedures, they have had since. Oh, here we go. We're starting the process.
Yeah, and Cardinal Ray is looking pretty good for 91.
Yeah.
Is that how old he is?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. He buried Pope Benedict, and now
What's
he'll be
his
burying Pope
skincare
Francis.
routine?
Seriously, it's impressive. Oh, I figured it out. Anytime I'm not looking at it when I'm on another tab, it stops the stream for me very helpfully, unless I'm trying to give live commentary on who I'm seeing, which is less helpful then.
You're gonna have to pop out your little screens into little sections.
And sorry, we're talking during the funeral. Hopefully they can't hear us. Oh, that'd be so awkward.
If we were just like there and on the side and talking.
We've just got our little microphones. And now we need to speculate on what the skincare routine of Cardinal Ray is.
Seriously, 91.
Fabulous for 91. That would definitely be a moment. I mean, surely there are plenty of political pundits and journalists who are here right now doing exactly that, but probably on more serious topics.
And plenty of non-political pundits wondering about the skincare routine.
They're probably not, they're probably not here. They're probably also watching like a live stream and commentating.
But there would definitely be journalists present.
Oh yeah, but not talky ones.
No.
Yeah, I do think that sea of red is the Cardinals.
Oh, I would hope so.
They took their miters off to go outside, which is interesting. Is that why they filed out so slowly?
I suspect they probably took their miters off because mass situation.
You can't wear a hat in mass.
You can wear your Zucchetto, but you wear the hat in procession, but not, I think, when you're,
is that
settled.
Langlois there in the back? I don't.
Could be. I think that might be Cardinal Zen on the right there, and then is that New York? No, maybe
Dolan.
Dolan. Yeah,
Dolan is present, and
Zen on the right.
Dolan is. I actually got a message the other day about how Dolan is a very active cardinal on social media. Unfortunately, his
He
only
always has
place
been.
where
He's got a podcast.
yes, but the only place that he shares anything is the one social media platform that we have nothing to do with. So
Yeah. That might
if
be
this ever
Donardo
gets
there on the bottom left right now.
if this ever gets back to Cardinal Dolan, please come join us on like Blue Sky or something, so we can actually see what you have to offer.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting looking shot. Look at how brilliant the Cardinal Red is compared to the other clerics who are present in mostly white.
You can see the Eastern Cardinals here, definitely in
Yes.
their different dress, but present among the other Cardinals. And
Is that the
I should.
patriarch? Do we know if he's in attendance?
That is several of the patriarchs. That would
Mhm.
not be Bartholomew. He's got more of a wispy beard, if that's who you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
wondering. I also do not believe he would be seated among the cardinals,
No.
just because it's that specific connection to Rome. There's a difference there. Although it's interesting the way that they sort of rank the patriarchs who are cardinals, because there are several Eastern Rite Catholic patriarchs who are cardinals, and they automatically have the rank of a cardinal bishop, which is the highest sort of tier within the College of Cardinals. So Cardinal Ray that we were talking about is the highest ranking cardinal bishop. There he is.
Senior most.
Yes. And then we've got the Vice Dean, who I shouldn't have brought up because I'm currently blanking on his name. We'll let Cardinal Ray talk about it.
Sandri is the Feisteen.
Yes. Leonardo Sandri, yes. He is also over 80, so that's why he's not running the conclave as the backup.
Yes, as we can assume, it will be Perulin stepping in, because Perulin has stepped in quite a lot lately.
Yes. Yeah. Perulin has been stepping in like his entire, basically Francis's entire papacy. Like he made him his right-hand man sort of right at the start, when he made that the Council of Cardinals to sort of oversee the reform of the church administration, that curia that I was talking about. I think Perulin was already involved with that from the start, and he was basically on it sort of the whole way through. Cardinal Sandri, by the way, I hesitated to say this, but I am correct as I look into it. He is from Argentina, so there is that sort of Pope Francis type connection. Originally from Buenos Aires, he is 81.
Carlos asks if it's weird to see Orthodox cardinals there, or if that's normal. This is it's not unusual to have them present,
and it is normal for them to be camera fodder or camera bait, I guess I should say.
Yes, definitely. And Trocanero asks and says, I guess that even other denominations would send people. Absolutely.
Oh,
we
yes.
know that there are many denominations and many religions being represented here today as well.
Papal funerals are sort of like major ecumenical events just in themselves.
And it is true that Francis was working to at least have a much better relationship with the Orthodox Church. And there was certainly a lot of talk about a unified date for Easter, which you know how we feel about that over here at Pontifacts.
Easter.
Yes. Roberto and I were talking about that very optimistically. And then like a couple hours later, although we didn't know it ourselves, His Holiness died, which was kind of tragic because this meeting where I honestly think that there would have been a unified date for Easter, announced, was set up by Patriarch Bartholomew and Pope Francis literally 12 years ago. Because I remember Mary and I were on our honeymoon when it got mentioned on the radio that they had committed to this celebration of the Council of Nicaea for themselves or their successors, and part of the what came out of Nicaea was the original unified date for Easter, or at least unified between Catholicism and the main orthodoxy, but even then there were
yeah.
still, off in like Ireland and such, some different traditions that just were not quite on the same page with the dating of Easter, as we heard through all of the papal history on Pontifacts.
And we are so close to what would have been the anniversary of the Council of Nicaea in June, which they were intending to meet for the anniversary of the Council of Nicaea.
Yes, I think they were getting together in May.
Yes.
Was the plan.
So that will be an interesting decision for the new pope to make, whether or not that's something that they continue on with. I assume it will be, considering I don't actually suspect that this is as contentious as it once was, given that they were going to such an extent to come together and to have those meetings and those conversations and talk about a unified Easter date.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say it probably in some fashion will still happen. But it's also fair to say that, there's certainly a range of possibilities depending on who the next pope is.
Certainly. James did point out that the previous reader had quite a jazzy funeral dress. Yes, covered in cherries.
I was very happy to see a lady lector.
I wonder if this is a Dominican, because he is in all white at a funeral.
Yeah,
although, as we know, white is a formatted and regulated mourning color for papal.
Oh, that's right. Yes. And the Cardinals, to get, informal again, the Cardinals do have their hats back on. There is, obviously there is a formula that I'm not familiar with, not being a bishop myself, of when you actually are mitered. But even when you're not mitered, you've got your zucchetto or the various other iterations of that skull cap.
Yes.
Yes. So usually you have two hats on. Maybe you go down to one hat at certain points, but there is certainly a reason why one of the first Pontifacts episodes was "Look how big my hat is." You could have a whole podcast on religious headgear, especially the Eastern Catholics. Again, that's one of the distinguishing features. These are, I believe, they'd be archbishops.
There's a whole Dennis Leary bit where he talks about how the hats just get bigger and that God must have a giant sombrero.
Well, and they had what was it, Suleiman the Magnificent, that did the quadruple tiara to one up the papal triple tiara.
Absolutely.
And then I think there was one guy at one point that did 5. Just again following up on that.
The portraits of that man are incredible. Now, interestingly that you say that, I am sort of in the background. It's obviously taken a backseat to everything that's currently happening, but I am working on an episode about ecclesiastical regalia and making sense of it, because of course on the podcast we regularly talk about the pallium, which we know will feature prevalently here today. So having an understanding of all the different pieces that come up is something I'd certainly love to put out on the podcast feed eventually. It's going to take a backseat to, of course, some of this funeral content. Oh, we have an actual address happening.
I think this is probably the first reading. So normally Mass has 2 readings, creatively called the first reading and the second reading. Oftentimes the first reading is from the Old Testament. The second reading is from the New Testament. In this case, not unheard of, but the first reading is actually from the New Testament along with the second reading. And then there's the Gospel as basically the third reading, which is always from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
I haven't had to pick funeral readings yet, but is there like a set number of them like there is for weddings?
Yeah, I believe so. Now, if Pope Francis told them to do a different one, I'm pretty sure they would have.
Yes, these clearly were selections that were made in advance. Francis, of course, we know, was very involved in changing and re-regulating the funeral practice of not only his funeral, but what will be done for future popes to really sort of simplify this process down. So we can assume he absolutely picked these readings himself.
Yeah.
That
I
really does
noticed he
pop in
picked.
that aerial
I want
view.
to see how short, because he did number 3 for the Eucharist, and that was a pretty short reading. So I wonder if we picked all the short ones to be like, let's get this on with.
Oh,
well, if that
if he was
was the
picking the
first,
short ones, they would have done Eucharistic prayer number 2, which one of
yeah,
my theology
2's the
professors loved to point
shortest.
out is the one that you do when your church is being actively bombed. He was not a big fan of shortcuts.
well, you say that because my first thought when you said this is probably the first reading is that we are chugging right along, if that's the case, because there's of the readings that are being done today, things are moving at a very clipped pace. Also, I noticed that we're up to 15 viewers right now, so thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't said hello, let us know where you are in the world, where you're watching from. And if anybody has any like particular memories that they want to share of Pope Francis and whatnot, let us know in the chat, because I know that I have a couple in mind for us to talk and reflect on, so that we don't at any point during this live stream fall into the tired not talking stupor, because that will
Because
be
this
harder to
this
recover
is
from.
still the nighttime for most of us.
I was gonna say, honestly, I think we've also got the tired enough to just keep talking. There's 2 ways that can go. It's fine.
But we are
It's
not
fine.
alone, which is wonderful. We actually have people here
Yeah.
to join the community with us. You know, as we get about halfway through the funeral, you're going to have to explain your adopt a cardinal process again, because we do have more people who have yet to claim cardinals for themselves in the process. Have you
Yes.
decided what you're going to give the winner if they do actually pick the right
Oh,
cardinal? Oh,
we don't even know the date of the conclave yet. At least I don't think we do.
that's
we,
true. Well,
we know the
we
range.
know the range for sure.
Yes.
Roland asked, "What do you think the next papal name will be?" I have a lot of strong feelings about this, so I'll go last. Anybody have any thoughts?
I honestly think it would be fun if they did Pope Michael. I think there's a strong chance of Francis II, though. John Paul III, depending on which way they want to signal. You could well see another Pius.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did sort of casually throw out John Francis at a point, which would be an interesting sort of choice. What I would definitely like to see if it were me, and this is going to sound very oversimplified here, is that I would really love for them to continue the tradition that Pope Francis started by choosing the first new name in over 700 or since the 700s, so that we started to see, rather than bringing back some of the old favorites, which I know there are a lot of good ones we could
That's
bring
a
back.
lot of red on someone who's not a cardinal.
Is that a chasuble that we're looking at? A red chasuble?
Chasuble? Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so.
It is a choice.
It
Maybe
might
it
be
is
technically distinct. Well, it's I think it's one of the approved colors for funerals.
It is. And we know that. I would love to see them continue on with a singular name, primarily for the flow of the introduction of our episodes, because From Peter to Francis sounded so sleek and like flowed so well. So having to throw a number in there would just be kind of unfortunate at this point.
I'm double checking just to make sure.
I'm looking at the crowd.
I like that. That's not. I'm like, that's not Baichuk. No, because he's Eastern, so you would be able to tell he's got more of the crown style. Baichuk is the youngest cardinal, so I was like, there's a chance maybe it's him, but it's not. No, he's certainly dressed as a Latin Catholic, but he was born in the 80s, which is not allowed.
I think it's interesting that the so far of the readers that we've had, only Ray is a cardinal. We've seen primarily people of other roles presenting.
I think there's sort of the like the cardinals have other things that they're doing. So maybe let the various other folks kind of running around the Vatican have some chances to do stuff.
Definitely. So in the chat for papal names, I'm seeing JP3, which would be amusing, but I wonder if they would be discouraged because of the fact that there is a media JP3. We have a Lando 2, which would be great. That would be a great throwback if we're talking about, the first original name since the 700s. Of course, Pope Lando was the last original name. Roland says, if my guy wins, I want Francis Xavier. That would be a saint I'd love to see come back into a larger public imagination.
With
James says,
Bolton mentioning earlier in the chat Adrian IV, I wonder if his adopted Cardinal Nichols might end up being Adrian V. But he says the correct answer is Sixtus VI, which that would be my papal name.
I agree.
But I'm already
would love
anti-Pope Gregory, so
I would love to see a Sixtus VI just for the completeness of it. I also see in the chat Trocanero has said Gregory the 17th, but
he also
there are a
said
lot
that Gregg
of
knows his beards, which is true. I do take pride in that. That is a way to identify folks.
But there are also a lot of Gregory the 17th. This is an extremely popular name for anti-popes. So there was at least an anti-pope in the Palmyran Church, and there's at least another one somewhere else. One of the other anti-popes was Gregory the 17th as well, but the Palmyran one ended up being Pope Gregory the Very Great, which I still think is the absolute funniest title I've ever heard. That was also an anti-pope who, upon his death, there was a liturgy put out by his church that his soul immediately ascended to heaven. Oh.
If we're doing like a statistical count, I can really pad my numbers by correctly identifying Cardinal Ray again, as long as our statistic is just how many times I correctly identified a cardinal.
I mean,
counting
look at
distinct cardinals.
Look at the edges of the coffin, right? It has that sort of sawtooth.
Oh yeah,
build a brick sort of look about it. I don't think this is a bad thing, but I do think it's quite interesting to see it show up so prominently. You'd think that they would at least have it all be like really one color. He sounds quite good for 91 as well.
Do you think he's going to stick to the 14-minute cap?
Oh.
The 14-minute cap?
For a sermon, yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't have a deacon dad, so you might be the expert on that, Fry.
Yeah, speak to that, Fry. Tell us about the 14-minute cap.
I just know that, like,
if his papers get blown away, it'll be faster.
Yeah, it'll be much faster. That, like, usually they don't let a sermon go on and on for too long because everyone loses interest, and it's usually like 14 minutes is where they cap them.
Interesting.
I know some people that don't follow that, and some people that do like the 2-minute cap.
Actually, it gives me a perfect opportunity to bring up one of my favorite things about Pope Francis was that he was totally unabashed in the fact that he definitely was falling asleep a lot of the times that he would show up for a public service, and they would, particularly with papal audiences, because there was this process where he would, of course, present what he wanted to address. He would give the address, and then there would be upwards of 5 to 10 different cardinals who would read the same address in different languages.
I think that's Cardinal Marengo there.
Where?
The younger one with this with slight stubble.
So
I might have gone off live again.
as soon as they would get into we have a featured face. Who are we looking at there?
I was just thinking that my screen
looked
froze.
he looked very familiar.
I appreciate
quite
that
clock it.
they
I got
put
it
in the
backlight again.
Mary side of the altar, but didn't bother with the other side.
Is that a
like,
thing?
ah,
That seems to be a thing, that there's like the Mary side, and then I wasn't sure if that was official. I know that's the case in my church. Like the
no, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
the Mary side is official.
audience, right?
Because like
Actually,
when
no,
you
wait,
get
Mary. Oh man, I've only gone to my church for like my entire life. I kept.
when you get married, there's that whole chunk where you're supposed to go over to the Mary
Yeah.
side.
Okay. Yeah. Audience, right, Fry? Is that correct? I don't know.
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Coming
one of
back to the
those.
discussion we were having on papal names, Trocanero said, I'm suspecting some of the often used ones like Gregory, Clement, Pius, etc., but I'd like to see a yes or a used name or a new one. And I agree. I think
Oh, it's
if we
Mary on the
had
left, Joseph on the right. That's right. Yes, that is the way it is in my church. And yeah, I guess that is standard, or at least as pretty standard.
So James asks, what is the book on the top of the coffin? Looks too short to be a Bible. I wonder if it is in fact the funeral rite. Do you have commentary on this, Greg?
Well, it probably is, I would guess, the funeral rite.
Yeah.
But also they have that one document that he's that's buried with him, right? That kind of summarizes his papacy.
Yes, but that's already inside.
Yes, that's in the coffin. Yes,
yeah, and that is a one-page document that serves as sort of a testament to the papacy, and it is specifically rolled up and placed within a copper tube, which is then placed.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, did they laminate it good? Because that's gonna rot.
No, they put it in the copper tube. It gets buried with it, like with the body, and then is sealed within the first coffin.
Just to pad my accuracy ratings, here's a Cardinal Ray.
Oh, look, whoever that is in the corner is definitely having that moment of falling asleep.
Yes, that is the plume of a Swiss Guard.
Yes.
There.
Hey, actually, let's talk about that for a minute, because anytime I see Swiss Guard, I would love to point out to you that those uniforms are as they were designed initially.
Yeah, those are some old school uniforms.
Yeah.
And is that the case that Michelangelo was involved, or is that a rumor?
He was involved. It was not his final product that came out of it. However, you will notice that
Michelangelo? Da Vinci?
No, I think it was Michelangelo. It was Michelangelo because the Swiss Guard was originally formed under, or at least come into creation under, Julius II. And those colors are there, the red and yellow, to represent the Medici. So, which of course we know that they come to prominence after Julius II with Leo X, which is where, of course, all of that finery and extravagance would have come in. I love them. I think the Swiss Guard uniforms are everything. They're
now
my
dog
favorite.
is staring at me and like, what are you doing? Why are you here?
Why are you here? Why are you awake? Yes, I'm sure mine are wondering the same thing downstairs. That has to be the funeral rite. Looking at the size of it.
Yeah.
Okay, Noga asks if we can explain the color scheme of the people in the church. I see tons of red and white, some purple, and that's mostly it. Does that have any meaning?
So
yes,
the purple is generally going to be bishops. The red, as we've discussed, is generally cardinals, although it is a mourning color for the church, and so you are seeing it on non-cardinals as well.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that for the mourning colors, because that's a good point to point out. That
no one is going into their closet and wondering what they should wear to the papal funeral. It's all very dictated.
Absolutely. We have, of course, red being traditionally a papal color. This goes straight back to the beginning of the history of the church. Red, of course, being the color of martyrdom. It's very clear to understand why, right from the very beginning, they would have associated this with the popes, with the blood of the apostles, with the blood of the martyrs, with the blood of the popes. And then white is also traditionally a Byzantine mourning color. So it is assumed that white became part of the traditional papal funereal practice during the Byzantine papacy as a result of the adoption of some of those practices, and that has stayed with us since that period in time. So and the purple certainly comes in for the bishops. We know that purple, of course, traditionally has been a color of royalty, and before the role of cardinal morphed into what it is, and sort of the beginning with we can talk about the cardinals starting to look as recognizable as they do to us today in about 1059 with Pope Nicholas II and In Nomine Domini, which sort of started to separate the cardinals as a specific elite class. Before that, we would have had that been your bishop. The bishop would have been the highest ranking position in the church until we start to see this sort of designation and elevation of the cardinals.
Yeah, and before that time, the cardinals were sort of the higher ranking folks within Rome itself. But yes, there was more of that universalization of the administration of the church.
Yes,
I hope
because
all these people are wearing sunscreen.
I honestly, like, just seeing the brightness, I'm just like already like feeling sunburn on the top of my head, and I'm not even outside.
I'm sure Cardinal Ray has sunscreen on.
Yes, which by the
Cardinal
way, that
Ray
is
also
Cardinal Ray
has
there.
some shade.
Live stream in which I identify Cardinal Ray.
Now, what we really should be having you do,
the
Greg,
handless
because
statue.
we know that we know that this is a particular interest of yours. Fry and I have been rating all of the statues lining St. Peter's Basilica for you.
Yes, so every time we've got I decided that we're going to have a lot of cardinals born in Rome. So I do a Rexipod, similar to the Pontifacts style, just to give you an idea of the format. For all of the cardinals of the Catholic Church, there's been some 4,000 through history, many of them obviously born in Rome or its environs. And so I decided to kind of spice things up. Whenever we have someone, normally I talk about the history of the area, that they're from, specifically the Catholic history of the area. Well, in the case of Rome, there's a lot of Catholic history there, but not enough to be, necessarily engaging each time. So to spice things up a bit, in the case of cardinals born in Rome, we've been going with the patron statues, or the patron saint kind of hybrid, the patron saint shoes, as I put at least labeled the document.
Yeah, do you have the list? Because that would be a good one to post in chat and see if anybody can identify them as we're going around. Ooh, Roland, new question. Have any other popes been buried at Santa Maria Maggiore before? I believe so.
Yes.
Yes, we have. Hold on, I'll pull up my list of extant papal tombs.
Because just the other day I went through that. I was listening to your papal funerals thing. Because I was like, have I listened to that episode? And then I was like, oh, that's right, I edited it like 2 days ago. But yes, Santa Maria Maggiore was on the list of previous papal resting places.
We have several, it looks like. So we have Nicholas IV. We have Pius V, Sixtus V, Clement VIII, Paul V, Clement IX, and Francis. So a good handful of popes have been buried at Santa Maria Maggiore. It is a beautiful church. Interestingly enough, the last time that I was in Rome and I wanted to visit Santa Maria Maggiore, someone was actually getting married there.
Ooh.
Oh.
And I was baffled. One, because that meant I couldn't go in, and I wanted to go in. But two, like, who has the sway to get married at Santa Maria Maggiore?
Yeah, usually it's like the Pope's daughter.
The Pope's
granddaughter.
started
on that.
Oh.
Papal weddings, papal funerals. The statues link is now in the chat.
Perfect.
For the colonnade statues. That was the term I was looking for.
Did you post it? I'm not seeing it.
Should be under popular history there.
If you're seeing it in the chat, let us know. I'm not seeing it, but that could just be on my end.
I'll put it in the StreamYard chat too.
Oh, you put it. I think you put it in the private chat.
I put it in both.
Okay. Man, I have got to give Ray some credit. He is doing a fantastic job delivering this. He's got a very strong voice. He's very on the mark. You know, usually when we get to a point where we're having a 91-year-old man deliver something like this, it becomes...
He's doing well. He's a Popeular if they want a short papacy. Sorry.
Could you imagine? I was just thinking that actually, what it would look like if someone
would
like
not be
Ray
the oldest
was
pope
elected.
at the election, right? Kazagata.
Oh, sure, verifiably. Anyways, but that it would be. You'd have to wonder because we'd know that we would be doing this whole process again very soon. And I hope that's actually one of my biggest hopes for the way that this goes in terms of the conclave and the election of a new pope is that we have a pope who's going to be around for a while, who's on the younger side, who will step into the fact that presumably they have time to make some of those changes. Of course, you know, that goes without saying that they're making the changes I want to see and sort of following in Francis's footsteps rather than stepping away and trying to undo some of what's been done. But
I think
it would be cool to see somebody like step into that role and really give it like okay, well, I'm definitely going to be here for the next decade.
Yeah. Speaking of the opposite of the youngest, I think the kind of the somewhat hunched older cardinal that we've been seeing pop up at the end of his. I think that's probably Cardinal Acerbi, who actually was just created cardinal in December at the ripe old age of 99. Pope Francis created a 98-year-old cardinal a few years ago before that.
If you were made a cardinal at the age of 99 and you still managed to come to the Vatican for the papal funeral, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like he never left the Vatican. I believe he's done a fair amount of travel because he was a nuncio, including such places as New Zealand. So he went right off the map.
Throwing that in there for Thomas,
I throw that in at every opportunity. Speaking of, Pier Battista Pizzaballa is here somewhere, but that's Cardinal Ray. That's not Pier Battista Pizzaballa.
Well, your ID is on par. So, since we're in the process,
there have been centenarian cardinals, yes,
yes.
Trochanero. Not at elevation, but yes, indeed.
So since we're right in it, and Ray is delivering strongly here, and this is a good moment for reflection. Let's talk about Pope Francis for a minute. Let's talk about our favorite memories and reflecting back on what his papacy meant and how we connected with it. You know, they can be fun memories, they can be, sentimental, they can be silly. And
before we do that, I do think we're probably past due for me to again plug the Adopt a Cardinal.
Yes,
scheme.
Tell us about the Adopt a Cardinal, because there are new people in the chat who have not claimed their cardinals yet.
Yes, indeed. And I have woefully behind on updating my database. But bottom line, with Adopt a Cardinal, to adopt a cardinal, you simply name a cardinal in the chat. If no one else has named that cardinal, then that cardinal is available for adoption. And you will adopt that cardinal by naming them in the chat. When you adopt a cardinal, if they are elected pope, if they, adopt a church by becoming pope, then you, as the person that picked them, at least for our purposes, are basically kind of like a cardinal. So, you get special title. We might figure out a way to get you some sort of titular church, maybe a red hat. Who knows? The possibilities are actually relatively limited with a budget. But adopt a cardinal today, and I will let you know if the cardinal you have given or listed is taken, or I will add you to this database, which I'm going to share back into the chat as soon as I remember which tab it was in. And then we can go back to reflect about Pope Francis.
Oh, and look, Trocanero has just done the work I was just about to do and talk about who's been claimed already. So we've got Pizzaballa and Krajewski, Nichols, Tagle, and Arborelius. So thank you so much. That's helpful. I was just going to do the scrolling. And I am so very tired.
Oh, well, then that means that I'm actually relatively caught up.
Who did you claim, Gregg?
I have not claimed one yet. It felt a little weird for me to be claiming one.
Oh, you should claim one.
I should claim one. Okay. Oh,
I think I know who you might claim, but
I don't know any cardinals. I'm claiming Cardinal. You know what? I'm claiming Cardinal Ray.
Okay. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we talk about the Popeular, and I know that came up in the chat earlier. I don't know that we gave it its due. With people wondering, like, are any of these, potential future popes? The odds are the potential future pope is in the house.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now. Yes, somewhere
that man
in that
did not
crowd.
put sunscreen on his bald head.
Yes, well, he's a potential future pope. So you have to be unmarried Catholic male.
Yes,
there's a fair number of Catholic males in the audience. We're not close enough to see the wedding ring status, but anyone who's an unmarried Catholic male has at least a chance.
And it may be sort of a distinction without a difference here, but I also think they also think you need to be a baptized Catholic male. So
well, that's what makes you Catholic.
Yes. If you're like a new convert, you haven't quite gotten there yet, sorry, you're out of the running.
Yes. That is Bartholomew. You can tell by the beard.
Okay, so we know the Eastern Patriarch is in the house then.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
I would assume that he would be here. Again, we are going to see
usually the patriarch traveling to Rome makes news, but right now everyone's in Rome.
Yeah. Quite literally everyone. Let's not discount the fact again that this is happening during the Jubilee. So there was already an absolutely elevated level of people in Rome visiting for church tourism when this happened.
Oh, how long is the Eucharist going to take?
Oh, they get pretty efficient with it. But I mean, I would say probably 10, 15 minutes. This is Cardinal Ray, by the way.
Trocanero points out that it's a big popularity boost if a dove lands on your head, and we have to say, not anymore, unfortunately. They no longer allow for the electing of popes by acclamation. That has been removed from the process. And
I do feel like if a dove landed on someone's head and refused to leave, and especially if it was like a cardinal, that would help their chances.
Well, are there any doves here, or are they just white pigeons at this point?
There are doves, because there was that whole incident.
They released a dove, and yeah.
In the early, that was during Francis's papacy. I'm fairly certain, where they released a dove and it was attacked.
I was gonna say I'll let you describe that, because I was gonna hesitate.
Which is pretty rough.
Although doesthedovedie.com does not have a good result.
Before we get to memories of Francis, speaking of the birds of Rome, I think it's important to note that this is Rome, right? And Rome has its own population of wild native parrots.
Really?
Yes, they're green.
I guess because it's tropical.
I think this is the intercessory prayers, by the way.
Okay, so now we know where we're at. Intercessory prayers.
Yeah, you got different people coming up and reading the different petitions. So basically, like, hey, God, help out this particular thing in the world.
I don't have that on my list. Unless because that's part of the Eucharist.
That's normally what happens here.
Mm-hmm. But yes, so the parrots, they're green. And I believe when I was last in Rome and noticed them and started looking up what was going on with them, that it was more of a situation that someone at some point had parrots and they were released, and that has created a native population. I could be wrong about that. It's a fuzzy memory, but
They're all incestual parrots.
they're all, yeah, essentially. And now they're their own. I'm gonna look it back up because this is they do have the rose-ringed parakeet. Oh, there's two
What's a
of them
parakeet?
actually. The parakeet parrot.
I liked that one meme that was like, cardinals likely to be elected pope, and it's got all of these the different types of birds, and it's like, this cardinal is not likely to be elected pope because it is a bird.
Oh, we have some before I move on, because I have my parakeet information here. We have some claiming. So Carlos is going for
Alright.
Zoopy. That's a really good choice.
Zoopy,
Very
yes.
strong capability.
Popeular.
Kenneth is going to go with Jean-Claude Hollerich, who is also an interesting choice. Very
Yes.
Popeular as well. Strong proponent of the environment and protection of that.
And
Is
both
the
of
booklet
those
the
are
obituary?
fairly LGBT friendly as well.
Yes.
Cardinal Zuppi stopped a war. He's an honorary citizen of Mozambique because he helped stop a civil war there. And this was before he was cardinal. And now they've got him running around trying to get through the Ukraine situation. They've been working with him, shuttling back and forth for the last few years.
I also
among
think
others.
he's generally considered to be the most left-leaning by most people
of
in
the
church.
Popeular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Carlos, we're pretty sure that booklet is the. Are you talking about the one that people are holding? Because that's definitely the funeral program. But we're still fairly certain that the one on Pope Francis's casket is the funeral rite.
Yes, I think it probably somewhere in the format for funerals, it basically says have the funeral rite be on the casket, which I feel like for practical purposes, it's just that the priest doesn't have to feel bad about needing to have it around, because look, it's the rule, you got to have it around. And they just did not make an exception for that for Pope Francis.
And again, like we said, this is different now.
How many bodies of Christ are we changing?
Transubstantiating?
How many individual wafers? I don't know. But how many bodies of Christ? One.
Because there was like at least 2 or 3 glasses of wine up there, and several priests just like rolled up and were like, we're going to do this all at once.
And I guess the real question here is, how many people get to partake of the communion here?
And it's interesting the way that this works with large crowds, because basically there's certain theological concepts, and I'm going to get myself into trouble here because I'm talking very, very particular point of theology here. But basically, it depends on what the priest intends to consecrate. Like, you could have something off on a side table, and it would also be consecrated if that's what the priest meant to do.
Right.
So, if the altar is just too full. But yes, so this is the beginnings of the liturgy of the Eucharist, as it's called, kind of the second half.
That's a wild goblet. Look at that thing.
Speaking of goblets, have you seen the comedian that's making its rounds on TikTok and social media about why the church will not accept a female pope? Because they lost the Holy Grail, and it would take a female pope walking in, opening a cabinet in the Vatican, and going, "Here it is. It's been here all along."
It's been here the whole time.
Circling back to our parakeets, there are 2 species of parakeets, and they escaped from aviaries and were released by private owners in the the 1970s and 1980s, establishing a separate breeding colonies. So there are 2 different types. They are the rose-ringed parakeet and the monk parakeet. So,
oh boy, we get frankincense. I guess because it's a funeral. Frankincense smells like bread and butter pickles to me.
What?
It smells like bread and butter pickles.
Frankincense does?
Yeah.
It's not even sweet.
It's whatever they burn at funerals. It smells like bread and butter pickles, and I'm pretty sure it's frankincense.
Are you a bread and butter pickle hater?
I am.
Or
Mm. So Kenneth Hall, just for reference, I noticed that you said whoever that is, with your apparently random number generator pick of Jean-Claude Hollerich. He is the Archbishop of Luxembourg, I believe.
Yes. He is.
Yeah, bread and butter pickles that are on fire.
Bread and butter pickles that are on fire. Fry. Sometimes I really wonder what's going on inside your nose and mouth.
Eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Did we mention it's 5 a.m. here and various other a.m.s for us?
It's 2 a.m.
4:07.
Yeah. And for some reason, I'm absolutely starving. So all this talk of bread and butter pickles, like I could go for some of that.
This is
Oh
why
my
I ran to
gosh.
Taco Bell as like the last thing I did before I went to bed. I was like, I am eating beforehand.
That is such a choice. Did you not have terrible Taco Bell nightmares?
I make all sorts of terrible choices.
Taco Bell is not the Pope Francis funeral meal I would have expected.
No,
Apparently.
that's like wake up, miss the funeral.
Yeah.
I got my miss the funeral out of the way because I was so nervous about missing the funeral. I told you guys like blow up my cell if I'm not like active and shuttling around a half hour beforehand.
As if I was gonna get up and out a half an hour
Well,
beforehand.
yeah, and so we were relying on Fry.
Oh yeah, no, Fry was relying on me.
You're relying on each
Don't
other.
rely on Fry to set a time for anything.
Oh, real quick, this is Cardinal Ray, by the way.
I was definitely like, I have an alarm. If I'm not awake, call me.
Yeah.
And so when I
So
woke
what
up, I just went, I'm up.
So what it boils down to is Gregg was relying on Fry, and Fry was relying on me. So everybody was relying on me to make sure they were.
I didn't
awake.
even know Gregg was relying on me. Like,
I wasn't. I was relying on Fry or Bree.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. Little adjustment for the headphones there. Okay. So we are in the Eucharistic process now. So
yes, so this
checking.
They are using Eucharistic Prayer 3 today, as we touched on, and so that is kind of mid-range in terms of length. The Eucharistic Prayer 1 is the sort of most traditional and also the longest. That's the Roman canon. Eucharistic Prayer 2 is very short. Eucharistic Prayer 3 is, yes, the one we're on now. There's a lot of different sub-options. Eucharistic Prayer 4 is unusual. You don't see it a lot. And when I say prayer, I mean like collection of prayers, because it's sort of, all of this back and forth, including things like the Our Father and various, I'll go ahead and say audience participation.
Did we see that heat waiver happen in there? On Cardinal Ray? How like we were getting the warbles from the heat. It's hot in Rome.
Can't be. You said it was only going to be like 74.
Yeah, like 23, but it's also
it's also everyone in the square.
We are also everyone
and
in the
concrete.
square and the sun and white.
Yeah, I think the microclimate there has got to be 10 degrees higher than the general forecast. At least it's pretty hot for funeral clothes.
That man looks very sad.
I was gonna say he looks kind of like a beetle.
So we're zooming out. We're having the Eucharist. Let's go back to this idea of sharing some memories about Pope Francis.
I will say our false Cardinal Ray that I think we had pop up for a minute there is they kind of swap out sometimes with the Eucharistic prayers. That may have been Cardinal Sandry.
Yes, that would make sense. We would expect him. Although Ravelli might also be present.
Oh, yes.
Ravelli is the master of the ceremonies of the liturgy of the pontiff. And so
yeah, he will be playing a role, especially although that one there was not Ravelli in particular. Ravelli is not a cardinal, so he doesn't have as much of the red, although as we've seen there's varying levels of red even for non-cardinals.
He's not a cardinal?
Gregg, why does that one man have fancy stuff?
I was surprised that he wasn't.
I might have absolutely called him a cardinal the other day because I was.
That's all right. He was. I would have made that mistake.
But Farrell, the Camerlengo, is
Yes.
a cardinal.
Yes.
So yes, also I see Imagine a Funeral in August. My papal audience was in August, and this like the crowds in St. Peter's, and it was so hot that that's why they moved us into the Paul VI auditorium, which, by the way, just as an aside, in case you have not seen the Paul VI auditorium, I highly recommend you look up the art piece that makes up the
it's the
whole front wall.
fancy. It's
The
the
last,
fancy
yeah,
apocalyptic looking one.
yes, it's absolutely wild, and it is potentially the creepiest art piece I've ever seen in a church,
Mm.
and that's saying something because there are a lot of pieces of art in the Catholic aesthetic that are quite disconcerting.
Speaking of citing things, this is a Cardinal Ray, by the way.
Oh, actually, let's answer Roland's question before we share memories. Looking to the future, what people would you like to see become cardinals in the future? Do you have any prelate? Yes,
I've been noisy about that.
That came up yesterday in my interview with NPR. I was talking about the hope that Francis would have done a little bit more with, because he talked a lot about the role of women in the church.
Okay.
Yes, Carlos has just seen the art piece. Yes, it is a lot. It is a lot. Oh, this is the very serious moment, the raising of the host.
Yeah, that's the initial elevation.
So
this is usually one of the
blood.
times when they're ringing the bells to start with. We're still relatively early in the Eucharistic prayers, if we are where I think we are.
So are there particular women, Greg, that you would like to see be made cardinals? Is there anyone specific in the church that stands out to you?
I mean, I'll let the next pope decide who stands out to them. In terms of likelihood, Raffaella Petrini is the most likely, because she is currently in a role that has always been held by cardinals.
Yes, that was my first thought as well. There is also, I don't know what her name is, but there's an amazing nun who was quite prominently featured in the PBC synod that they had about protecting children in the church.
Yeah.
And
I will say the words nun and amazing go together a lot.
Yes.
So I would, first off, I don't think that they would necessarily do just one the first time they do it, is my guess. My guess it would be, maybe a couple kind of together, so it's not so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, obviously, yes, the idea would be on individual merits, but at the same time, it'd be a lot easier, I think, for the individuals selected if, and I'll go ahead and say when that happens. If it's not just
that's
one.
definitely heat warbles. Look at them heat warbles.
It's looking hot. And
you got the shade
they're
umbrellas.
going to have to move that coffin out of here. I will point out that they have noted it is not going to go through St. Peter's Square, so it will not have to travel through this crowd. But imagine how much effort it is taking to clear the route in which they're going to take.
Oh yeah, so he is with the Cardinals. I thought it would have been more separated. Patriarch Bartholomew. Yeah, I would recognize that wispy beard anywhere.
Interesting that they've chosen. I've just noticed this. I haven't clocked it before, but they have such a very Byzantine image for Mary. That I wonder this. I can't clock which painting that is from here, especially particularly in the Byzantine or the Eastern style.
That might be Farrell there, by the way. The Camerlengo.
Oh yeah.
That guy?
Yes.
Yeah, that looks like Farrell.
I could tell you it's not Cardinal Ray.
I could tell you it's not Cardinal Ray.
That is Cardinal Farrell. Is that Langlois again?
No, he's too old to be Langlois.
Oh yeah, Langlois is quite young, isn't he? Who am I thinking of then?
Is that Sarah? Might be. I feel like he looks like he's one of the older cardinals, so he's not one of the ones I've looked at most intently. because I've been focusing primarily on those under 80. There's an off chance it could be Sarah. I don't think it's Sarah.
That's not Sarah. No.
Yeah.
No. I will point out that Farrell often, Cardinal Farrell de Camerlengo, who that absolutely was, is often cited as being American. He's actually Irish, but he was in fact the Bishop of Dallas. So, just for clarification purposes, he's often cited as being an American, but he was just simply an American placed bishop. And I can't imagine what the last couple of days have been like for that man. For those who have not heard our episodes yet or aren't connecting the dots here, Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Papal Camerlengo, is currently the de facto head of the Vatican and overseeing everything until the conclave and the election of a new pope. So he is getting a papal trial run right now, which must be a wild experience. Well, on that note, we can talk memories. I'm gonna start with one that's very simple because it's still one of my favorite things that Francis did, which is I will never forget the day that the news stories came out that Pope Francis came out and told everybody that the devil is a loser.
The devil is a loser.
The devil is a loser. It was one of my absolute favorite Pope Francis quotes.
I think for me, the time when I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting was when we started having, what was the one? The marriage controversy.
Amoris Laetitia?
Amoris Laetitia, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. About communion for those who, were secularly divorced and remarried. That was when I started to get the sense of like, okay, so this is not just, business as usual. And that's,
it's certainly one of his most controversial moments.
Giving, a bit of leadership in the sense of, guiding the church on a tricky topic.
Fry, do you have any memories specifically that you want to share about Pope Francis? Or
I remember not seeing Pope Francis because I couldn't get through the security when he went to the World Meeting of Families. I got to the right city, but I could not get through security in less than 4 hours.
Well, that is crazy because I got through security to get into the papal audience.
That was part of the issue. Like, security was not bad of a process when I went to go see Pope Benedict. But yeah, when they had it in Philadelphia, man, it was locked down. This is Cardinal Ray.
It's gonna make me laugh every time. It's early in the morning. I will say, of course, that one of my favorite actual memories of Francis is getting to meet him, and that's definitely going to stick with me for my entire life. It was such a wild experience going to the papal audience and then being part of this moment that felt like a Renaissance painting where this man is walking down this aisle and everybody's reaching for him, and it was this very sort of overwhelming energy, and then just watching him in that moment of this overwhelming thing. These people are so excited. This is a once in a lifetime event for almost everybody who is there. And then having him get up on the stage with that wild art piece, give his address, and then immediately sit down and start falling asleep like someone's grandfather. That very grandfatherly pose with his hands on his legs, just watching that head dip over and over. It was it humanized him so much. And Francis is already somebody who has absolutely humanized the papacy as far as I am concerned.
What? Trump, it's not time to fight for dominance of your handshakes during the Our Father.
The
Trump.
The black cardinal, by the way, who is concelebrating. I wonder if that's Cardinal Waco, but I have a hard time trying to figure out why it would be him. Part of the reason why I guessed Cardinal Sarah was because he does have a liturgical role, but yeah, that's not Cardinal Sarah.
Does have a liturgical role, or
I mean,
formerly
like
had a liturgical
the
role.
Congregation for
Yeah.
Divine Worship and Discipline of the
Yeah.
Sacraments. But you're correct, that is former.
Yeah. I don't know who that cardinal was that just leaned into frame to glare at the camera, but
I missed it.
oh, that
It wasn't
absolutely
Cardinal Ray,
got me.
probably.
It was not Cardinal Ray, but somebody looked very
Cardinal Ray's
grumpy.
busy.
Yeah. Oh, there's Cardinal Ray.
Okay, why is the wafer folded in half?
So it's broken. There's
Broken.
a specific piece where you fragment the wafer. Yeah, the host.
Okay.
And you do a dip.
Yeah, and then he's doing a dip now. Yep, the in-tincture.
Okay. Walk me through what you know about that, because that, like, to me as a non-Catholic, that's
yeah.
Jesus'
So you
body there. Why are you breaking it?
Well, because you're mingling the body and the blood. Now, specifically why that's part of it. I think in the Gospels, I think Jesus does dip the bread in the wine.
Okay.
In the Last Supper. So it is a bigger deal in the East, from what I recall. But there is, some little bit of that tradition still preserved. It's easier to dip leavened bread effectively in wine, or at least it's more of an impact.
Yes,
but
the leavened
bread
versus unleavened bread, and why that makes the East call people barbarians is something we're coming up to very soon in the podcast.
I don't like the idea of dipping bread in wine, things that don't taste good together.
Oh, so they are actually passing out communion to people who are there.
Oh, yes.
How do you get
this is a mass,
wine?
so you I mean, everyone who's at mass gets to come up and receive, and that's what Francis would have wanted. Well, every Catholic. If you don't know,
Catholic,
I'm willing to bet that there are Eucharistic ministers going out to the crowds. And we had a mass with over 1 million folks when I was in Toronto with the JP2 for World Youth Day. I mean, we all received communion.
Oh, they're all gonna do it.
You would have, side altars, probably several hundred.
The cardinals
possibly
are
more.
Gonna dip.
Yeah, Eucharistic ministers. So extraordinary minister of Holy Communion would be the term if it's someone who isn't, consecrated, a priest or deacon, or any of the other
bird.
Bird can.
If you say that there was a communion of 1 million people, I will accept it, because I was just looking to confirm my certainly not sort of moment.
Those
St.
are
Peter's
so big. Why are they're passing out the big ones?
Because this is a big
capacity.
special moment. So they must
Everyone
stand until they receive their communion. Okay. Yeah. St. Peter's Square can hold 300,000 people. So that's how many people.
It's looking like we're in an overflow situation.
Yeah. So that's a lot of communion to prepare.
Well,
like I said, it's what the priest intends to consecrate, right, on the theological level, because I don't think they had,
300,000 wafers up there.
Yeah, 300. Yeah, definitely the crowd here is not 1 million. It's the thing about gauging crowd size in St. Peter's is it's actually a pretty good environment to get a real quick sense of that, because it's the same space with lots of large crowds. But yes, we didn't see several 100,000 hosts on the altar, the principal altar. Although theologically, I think it's all the same altar. Is one of the rules with it, because you're not dividing Christ's body. At the theological level, anyone who receives communion, even if they only drink the wine or only drink the bread, because some folks, they do have low gluten hosts now. That's more of a thing. So there's an approved way to do that. And then also for alcoholics, you can get
gluten-free.
You can receive just the host and not the wine, of course. And oftentimes people just will only receive the host anyways, because for a while,
that's
the laity did not receive the wine.
There,
but for alcoholics, I mean, you can keep in mind you're not missing out on anything if you decide that receiving the wine is not the same, because it still has the physical properties of alcohol and can be an addiction. So there are accommodations across the board. But theologically, yes, both of them are actually the body and blood of Christ. So it's not like the wine is the blood exclusively. The wine is actually the body and blood, which is an interesting theological point, especially because, even if you pay attention at Mass, you're going to get the understanding that the wine is just the blood, because that's what they tell you. Like, you go up and you receive, and they say, hey, the body of Christ with the wafer, or hey, the blood of Christ. They skip the hey part usually. But yes,
the body and blood of Christ.
Theologically, both are included in both, which is one of the things that goes back way, a long time in church history, because that's how theology tends to work. When you had something that was defined mainly for like the Hussites, sort of the pre-Protestant, you might even say proto-Protestant situation in Eastern Europe.
What comes to mind?
I love this priest in a fishing hat.
Look, he's taking care of himself from the sun.
That is an
Zucchetto
approved
is not
priest hat,
doing
by
the
the way.
job.
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but that is a specific type of approved priest hat. So he's good.
Approved
are
fishing
you joking?
hat?
No. It's got a specific name. I just forget what it's called.
There is an approved.
Because you're talking like the black one that's like a mild droop.
No, it was
a fishing
straight
hat.
A fishing hat. Okay, never mind.
It was the tan Tilly hat. Like,
okay.
100%.
Oh, then nope.
There's a few Tilly hats in the crowd. We can see.
Yeah.
Like with the tourists, that makes sense. But that was a priest.
That was certainly a priest in official garments. With the Tilly hat.
I feel like that's something Pope Francis would have not objected to. So
now, he'd be
Greg,
like, nah, don't get burnt because you're out here at my funeral. Wear a hat.
Do you have commentary on
who
say
there's a number of approved hat options.
Who these people are?
So they appear to be deacons, because the way that they have their sashes,
okay.
down the one.
That's
if
me
it's
being
the double.
I don't associate deacons in my mind with sashes. So
they sashes isn't the right term.
Have that's like half their garb.
It's sashes?
Yeah.
What's the term for the sash thing? Do you recall, Fry?
I should know the answer to that, and I will get yelled at later. But no, it is
I
too
should
early
too.
in the morning.
Yeah.
Stoles?
Stole. Thank you. Yeah, it's a stole.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, because the obviously those are red stoles, appropriate for funeral. But the purple stole is the only like required piece of clothing basically for particular sacrament beyond like mass, vestiture.
Yeah, if you're doing sacraments.
You need a purple stole for especially for confessions. So oftentimes, priests will have their purple stole just kind of in their car in case they come across like a car accident and someone happens to be Catholic and want to do.
Got a last rites.
Get right with God.
Yeah.
So the stole more so than the. I guess it's only priests who have the little collar.
Well, so it would be so it's I believe it's still a stole for a priest, but deacons are not going to be hearing confessions. So
no.
Mm-hmm. I do think I know it's not the first time we're seeing this again. We repeatedly come back to the coffin, but I really do think that this having the coffin sit so plainly as it is so very it's making such a statement.
I was just thinking it is directly in that hot sun. That is not something you want to crack open.
Well, yes, that is an unfortunate reality associated with being carrying out the funeral in Rome, but I do think it's just really telling. It's such a symbolic thing.
I do need to I forgot to do this earlier, so I apologize, kids, if you have been listening intently and paying close attention. I did tell you were not to come down to the studio unless invited. You are officially invited. I did tell you I'd invite you over the feed. I'm guessing that they went back to sleep. But they did want to be on the live stream, and I did not want to have them do that.
Hey, if they're here, we would love for them to come and say hello.
If they want to come down, Patrick, Catherine, Joseph, you guys are welcome. Sorry I didn't do that earlier.
And if you are sleeping, we forgive you because
Yeah.
oh my.
You could still watch YouTube when it's not live and when it's not 5:30 a.m. Although, oh my goodness, yes, I hear some rumblings, so we may
Uh-oh.
have guests
Oh,
in the
the
studio.
children are coming.
Children are coming.
That makes me feel better. That I did not just completely forget. Although, so last call, well, not last call, rather pointedly, not last call. So Adopt a Cardinal will be continuing, as we figure out, if there's any sort of future live streaming for this Sede Vacante, potentially with the conclave itself. Adopt a Cardinal will continue with the available cardinals. So again, if you put a cardinal's name in the chat and no one else has claimed them, you have adopted that cardinal. If they're elected pope, you get some sort of, special title. We'll figure it out. Yes, so adopt a cardinal today. They are all, as I understand it, at least supposed to not have children. So I think that's typically an important thing when adopting your own personal companion.
They don't come with baggage.
Is that the term for it? Yes, come on in.
Hello, children.
I think I might have the door locked. So you were listening, huh? All right. Are the boys around?
They're in bed.
Okay.
Hello.
Well, hi. All right. So this is Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Look
make
at you being
I'm gonna
so
make
dedicated.
You not blurry, okay? Because right now my background's set to blur, so you guys are gonna get to see. Yes. Well, maybe.
If she scoots just a little bit closer to you, we can
Just
see
a
her
little.
just fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Carlos says hello as well. Hello.
There we go.
There.
Yeah. So now you're live on YouTube, baby. And the boys just are not. They decided not to watch. Do they watch any?
Yeah.
No, they like being in bed. That's okay. That's okay. So this is my podcast bunker. As you can tell from the concrete walls. So when I talk about my podcast bunker, I am being serious. Yes. Very happy I was able to get the Vatican flag to hide behind me. But yes, so there we go.
So
Right,
let's
bye?
ask her.
Let's
Ask her
Hey.
what does
Yeah.
she think so far?
You're being interviewed. What do you think?
Good.
Yeah?
Good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot like watching Mass, huh? Yeah.
Very
We've done our
similar.
fair share of watching Mass. Catherine loves doing the altar server, right? The acolyte.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you sometimes help bring the wine? The little bit in the glass thing?
I like to be an acolyte, and acolytes bring the blood, but it's still wine to the altar.
Yeah.
And the body.
Yeah.
And the body, but it's still bread.
Yeah. So before consecration, those are typically called the gifts, right? And it's kind of cool. They usually come up from the back of the church, and again, this is sort of a tradition that is a bit more clear in the East, where basically I think you'll occasionally have just families just kind of make some bread and bring it in, and it is literally the gifts from the ladies of the parish or whatever.
Noga would like to know which cardinal Catherine supports to be the next pope.
Yes, Catherine, would you like to pick a cardinal to be your adopted cardinal, and if they get to be made pope, you get a prize?
So I get to choose.
Yeah.
Does she have any favorites?
I need a list of names.
Oh, you need a list of names?
I do not know any cardinal.
Yeah.
Except since you kept identifying Cardinal Ray.
Well, it's true. It's true.
I now can identify Cardinal Ray.
Do you want Cardinal Ray? I'll get out of the way if you want Cardinal Ray. Okay.
Ooh.
And it just occurred to me that Catherine cannot hear you guys because I'm listening through headphones. But she's hearing me enough. So, yes. So, Catherine, I will yield Cardinal Ray to Catherine. She is pulling rank on me.
That's absolutely fair.
Yes. So I will have to figure out someone else. And I will probably, I'll figure that out some other time.
Okay.
I have been constantly listing Cardinal Paroline as my most
That's
likely.
who I thought you were going to pick.
I will, you know what? All right, fine. Cardinal Paroline.
Perfect.
Pietro Paroline.
Perfect.
Yes. All right. I really, really am overdue for finding that database again. So I will go back and find that and put that in the chat again. Hopefully we
Amazing.
did get the statues.
I don't know. I don't know if
It's
it ever
fine.
went through.
I'll look that back up. Yep. Okay.
We'll tell Catherine we're very happy to have
All
her
right.
as our special guest star.
Yes.
Mhm.
All right. Do you want to give another wave? All right. And then you can go ahead and go back to bed, or you can finish watching upstairs. All right. Love you, baby.
Aw, how lovely.
Ah.
So we have another question in the chat. Trocanero asks, do you think the papal tiara will be brought back? And I think this is really dependent on who becomes the next pope. I think
it would be very unlikely, but I think there are cardinals that would do it.
I also think it would be a huge mistake. And this is something that
This is
I
Cardinal Ray,
discussed.
by the way.
Mhm.
And he just yawned. He very, very discreetly
Oh.
covered his mouth. It's fair. It's fair, Cardinal Ray.
Look, there's a lot of preparation. He was probably up late preparing and reciting and
I need to figure out who has
practicing.
that like maroon, like almost like Doctor Strange cloak. Because that is a
maroon
choice.
cloak.
Oh yeah, in the front row of Cardinals.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, no, right now we're just seeing this Cardinal who I believe is Cardinal Ray.
Well, I do think it would be a mistake to bring back the papal tiara, because I think if we go from someone like Francis, who completely shunted the luxury, the excess, and everything, that if you had a new pope who decided to bring back all of that finery, people would look on that, especially in the current political climate, very, very, very negatively.
Yeah, and then ISIS would bring out the quadruple one again.
Well, look, I mean, if we get into a big hat competition, there's no holds barred at this point. Have you seen some of these
that arms
Kentucky
race
Derby
again.
hats? Like, okay, so we've had the communion. We've had that all carried out. We are now.
It's the ending bit.
Yeah,
this
we're
is
at the
kind of
final
the concluding
commendation.
rites. Although there will be, I imagine, we'll be sticking around for the, making our way to St. Mary Major.
Yeah,
Well,
the
and they did say
procession.
that the transition to Santa Maria Maggiore was going to take about half an hour. So but the actual burial of Pope Francis will be done privately. That will not be publicly
Okay.
televised. So once
Okay.
That's fair.
so his coffin will be on display for the journey of its transition to Santa Maria Maggiore, but the actual burial process will not be shared. So that will be the final farewell. Yeah. Coming back to the chat here, this idea of whether the next pope is going to be more extravagant or not. I think that's really going to be telling, and it's going to set. Oh, we're getting close up of the painting. That's going to set the tone right off the bat for this next pope. If they go luxury, finery, excess, I think that a lot of the goodwill that was sort of inspired by Francis with the secular population will go away very quickly.
Yeah, there's going to be a very, I think, quick sort of tone setting, and whatever tone is established will be hard to shake in terms of. I'm going to go ahead and say media narrative, not to be dismissive.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
Absolutely. Well, I think literally the minute that they announce the name, we will know like what to expect on that front. I think
you do sometimes see people surprise when they go and become pope, but I think that's going to be more of a historical thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's there are a couple who will stand out as being very different in their pre-papal life than they are as pope. But generally speaking, there is a consistency that we can expect. Some nice singing. Is this the antiphon then, I guess?
Yes.
That we would be communion antiphon. Okay. So we're making progress.
Actually, I think this is a litany.
A litany.
Yeah. Probably the Litany of Laredo, if I had to take a guess.
That is a sharp helmet. I love the Swiss Guard uniforms.
Oh yes. I wonder who the medaled guy is next to the Swiss Guard or
Mhm.
behind.
I am looking at some of my notes here that I took in advance of this, and one of the things that I noticed that we're far past, but it's interesting to note how they were proceeding. That the dignitaries who came to the funeral were set up in a specific order, with Argentina, the politicians from Argentina led the way, followed by Italy, followed by royal households, and then other presidents in quote French alphabetical order.
Oh yes, yes, that is like the sort of UN
Lingua franca.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is interesting. We do know, so of the people we do know, we've seen that Trump is present. Apparently Biden was going to come as well. Prince William is here somewhere.
I didn't
Chat, let
see
me know if you
Biden,
see
though.
those links. I think I just posted again the spreadsheet for Adopt a Cardinal and the colonnade.
I wonder
link
if
for the
YouTube is
statues.
blocking the spreading of your links.
Oh, you know what? That would make sense. Let me do something else here. Go ahead.
Speaking of, if you've seen a little bit of wiggliness on our own social media, I have been trying to keep up with everything that we've been posting lately, but because some of our content that we've done recently, including like our interview with NPR, both on the radio and with the actual print media, are being blocked because I am posting them from Canada, and Canada no longer allows like news links on Facebook and whatnot. So if you see me try to post things multiple times, I apologize. It's just
Okay.
Canada being weird.
Yeah.
But yes, we also in the chat, the Swedish King and Queen are here. The UK Prime Minister is also here. And
real quick, Bree, I put the link to the spreadsheet in the StreamYard chat. So if you want to like blue sky that out, or
yes,
whatever the term would be,
I can definitely.
And then the colonnades link is the one above that. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yep. That deacon definitely does have the Fisher hat.
There's
the
a bunch of hats
kind of
in the deacons.
Hat. Yeah, I like the yellow and orange there, or pink and orange. That's what those colors. Pink and purple. That's what those colors are called. Man.
Yep. Good morning.
Good morning. That's Cardinal Marengo. That is.
Oh,
but this is an awkward camera angle.
This is a really
the one that they're looking at might be Cardinal. I think Cardinal World's dead, so it's probably not him. That could have been.
They're like through the Swiss Guard helmet. Look at these cardinals.
Cardinal.
Oh, you know what? No, Cardinal World's not dead. I don't think that was Cardinal. Let me get back to live because I think I fell behind.
Their little hats are really good at keeping the sun off of their bald spots.
Yeah, so this,
the little Zucchettos, yes.
Yeah.
A litany of the saints.
Are we doing the prayer of the Church of Rome then? Because the prayer of the Church of Rome is specifically invoking all of the saints specifically.
Okay, then probably yes.
Excellent.
That would make sense.
So we are really, I mean, considering we've been here for 2 hours and we have not started to bleary-eye stared in the camera with nothing to say, I'm fairly impressed with us and the fact that they are chugging along.
Isn't Mass normally like 45 minutes? We're definitely longer.
We're chugging along by papal ceremony standards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're a whole hour ahead of schedule at this point. Both
how long were you thinking this was going to be?
Well, I did look into it because the funerals of Pope John Paul II and Benedict were both around 3 hours, but this was before the altered rite that Pope Francis.
Yeah, and we
had.
knew it's likely to be streamlined in his
Yes.
case.
I think he's getting close. We're getting closer to him actually taking his final voyage. So
Yeah. So the when you see those sort of like the Eastern, which I know you have to have some familiarity to immediately recognize it, but with the sort of the folks with beards typically are going to be the Eastern Orthodox and Eastern Catholics. And when they've got, in that case, we saw a shot of some of them with the, all black and then the kind of pointed up, well, not specifically not pointy, the flat top hats. The I really should have looked up the terms before I started talking about this, but the ones that have like the almost like reverse veil would be more along the lines of the Byzantine Rite, and then without that sort of reverse veil, just the hat itself without the extra fabric would typically be more along the lines of like the Coptic church.
yes.
Do we like the fisherman hat better or the plain ball cap?
I have to give credit to the fisherman hat. At least it says like I will go out into the world and have an adventure. The ball cap feels like so deliberately informal.
There's a couple folks who are really they're just going for it. Just straight up bald men with no hat.
There's a guy wearing the program as a hat.
Keep in mind it's coming up on noon, I believe.
Oh yeah, you can tell.
Yes. Yep, that sun is high and hot. Ooh. Give us a better camera angle.
No, this is what we get.
This is what we deserve.
I can't ID from this overlaid man's face profile on someone else's
face.
So there is that painting with like the shared eyes that they did for like the year of mercy. That reminds me of that, like the Triclops. The painters are horrific person with horrific.
Well, we know it wasn't Cardinal Ray because he.
I think it was. I think it was Parolin.
It could have been.
It looked like Parolin.
Yeah. So the guy with the incense right now is that Orthodox look that I was talking about.
The Byzantine Rite.
And then the one with the yellow the gold and white that was sort of just a few paces behind was more like the Indian style. I'm not sure if it's Sierra Malambar or Sierra Malankar, but that's more along the lines of that tradition.
Okay, so we can confirm that the singing that was just done was the prayer for the Church of Rome, because they are now about to do the prayer for the Eastern churches. So we are fast approaching the end of this funeral. We have, after this, the responsory and the antiphon, and then we will start the transit to his burial.
Oh, that's cool that they have this bi-liturgical. I was wondering if there was going to be any crossover.
I very much appreciate his own sort of patriarchal tiara here. This is quite an interesting look that they have.
I love this hat.
Yeah.
Oh, it's immediately very stylistic. Like, that immediately makes me think Byzantine. That's quite pretty.
It is. It's not surprising that we have the Patriarch of Constantinople here, who is, in terms of just, taking away all divisions from your mind, effectively the, highest ranking Christian in the world, if we ignore the divisions in the churches, in terms of just general, precedence. But you'll notice he is not taking part in the actual funeral, just because of the, current divided nature of, yes.
Oh, there's lots. They've all got their headdresses on.
Churches.
But yes, that does track. But it is, I think the presence, here does represent the level of like mutual respect. Even
They had
though
a
we're
good
technically
relationship.
we're still in the grand schism of 1054, right? Like, there's never been
Technically, the
result.
excommunications were lifted, but the churches
Sure,
have not been reunited.
they're not
So,
reunited.
sort of an
in peace.
interesting,
They're
like, in
still technically
between
in schism.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
There must be an incredible amount of pressure to when you are singing at the Pope's funeral.
I feel like if you're one of the people, like, officially singing at the Pope's funeral, you've also done a lot of singing. Hopefully, anyhow. It is interesting, always like the priests where, singing is part of being a priest, and maybe you're, strong at that, and maybe you aren't. It's like, look, I love Patriarch Bartholomew, but, growing a beard is not necessarily his beard is not the fullest. I probably just caused an international incident pointing that out. But you could generally distinguish sort of the Eastern traditions from the Western, because the Western would actively discourage beards, with the exception of some religious orders, such as the Capuchins, for example. So that's why Cardinal O'Malley, for example, sports a beard. But,
There
I
are
went on that
very few
sidetrack,
cardinals. Well, because
I needed to
you've been giving
backtrack
the beard
out
talk
of
from the
insulting.
beginning.
Yeah, I needed to backtrack out of insulting Patriarch Bartholomew. I love the guy, and you cannot control how much beard you grow. Bree, I know you do your best with growing beards.
It's coming along, maybe in 50 years. It's an interesting thought to have, though, like when you think about the presence of the Eastern Church here as part of this ritual, because it does sort of can make an argument that it does play into the idea of being the universal,
Just a hat shot.
Those are some spectacular hats, though. They deserve a little bit of camera attention.
Yes.
His vestments are also spectacular. The red one in the middle. He's the decorative nature of the fabric. But again, we don't want to necessarily see that come back to the Catholic Church. So it has its place. I wonder if they're the ones that brought the painting.
Maybe.
I know that Pope Francis specifically and regularly commented on his particular personal devotion to Mary, which is why I assume that it's there, right? That's also part of why he chose where he did to be buried.
Yeah, that does look like it's an icon. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it is. It's
technically
certainly an icon. Yeah, but I do think that there's probably something to be said about that with the with his personal devotion and feeling very strongly about that and having that represented in that way.
Actually, let me look here.
Very conciliatory. Noga asks what the big golden hats are called.
Yeah, that was on the list of things I was considering looking up.
Do we know if they have a different name in
I'm
the
sure
Eastern
they
Rite?
do.
I mean, I would assume
it's
that
some form of mitre.
Yeah, I would assume that here we would still refer to it as a mitre.
Actually, it probably does have a different name in the Eastern Rite. A lot of the Eastern Rite liturgical wear does have its own specific name.
This book is turning pages of its own volition.
It's keeping up. The Holy Spirit is keeping up with the funeral rite. Yeah, he's like, oh, I fell behind. I better catch up to where they're at.
Bree, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a link to just a blog post about types of Orthodox clergy and monastic headgear.
Okay.
So if you wanted, we'll see if maybe YouTube will let you put that in the chat.
Let's see.
I don't know that necessarily needs to go out on Pontifacts socials, but I think if you wanted to do the adopt a cardinal onto the socials, that might be a good way to do that.
There we go.
And actually, yeah, if you wanted to do the adopt a cardinal as well, if it's letting you post that and not me, that's fine.
Let's see if
That would be the
will.
link above that.
Yep. I've already put it out on social media, but let's see. Hey, there we go.
So just as a reminder, now that
Everything
we
is
do
in
have
place.
the link to, yes. So that is where we've got the claimed cardinals, or at least some of them. I've actually got some catching up to do. So I will get back to that. We will be continuing the Adopt a Cardinal program. So as we continue, hopefully we'll have some more live streaming set up as we go deeper into Sede Vacante, start picking up on conclave time. You will be able to adopt a cardinal. If you list during one of our live streams the name of a cardinal in the chat, then and no one else has claimed them already, then you will have adopted that cardinal. Don't worry if the cardinal has already been adopted. You can just name another cardinal. It's not like you run out of goes at it. And if the cardinal that you adopt is elected pope, then congratulations. You having basically picked the pope will of course get some of the rights and privileges of a cardinal, including special title on Pontifacts, Popular history, cardinal numbers, that sort of thing. Maybe a titular church. Maybe we'll figure out some way to get you like a red hat or something like that. We'll figure it out.
A good red hat.
There you go. Oh, that's right. I had a red hat ready for live stream and I forgot to put it on. Oh, this is not working well over the headphones. There we go. So we can look up the name of this headgear as well.
Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure that my very bad Halloween papal mitre is in here somewhere as well.
We got some
I don't
time.
think
This is the slow one. We got a few minutes of like 3 words, I think.
I mean, to be fair, that is such a poorly constructed costume hat that it is currently being bolstered by cardboard from like some frozen meal that was in my recycling many years ago, and it has to be like you can almost read the Chinese takeout name through the hat. But it worked for a lot of the silly photos that we were taking on social media. So I do notice that we are like staying fairly consistent with our viewer count for the moment, but there are people coming and going. So if you are new and you have joined us at this stage or somewhere recently and you haven't said hello, told us where you're from, please feel free to do that so we know where everyone's joining us from, what they're seeing, and don't forget to claim your cardinals because some of the good Popeular are starting to go.
And speaking of, the one during the incensing right now is Cardinal Ray.
No way. I would have never guessed. I don't know. It's going to make me laugh every time. Speaking of
Charles Mungvo, yes. Okay. I don't believe he's been claimed yet, so I'll go ahead and I need to go back through the list and actually update the
I don't think Bo has been picked yet.
No, he is not.
Bo is an interesting one. He appears on some of the Popeular lists as well.
Yes, which is a little bit surprising, but hey, I'm here for it.
Now you talk in terms of the Adopt a Cardinal that there is potential for more live streams to happen. Maybe we should talk about setting expectations and whatnot for that, because unfortunately the conclave, regardless of what day they actually specifically decide to set it on, is probably going to fall in the middle of a work week. And as we know that they do 4 votes in the day, give or take 4 votes, and 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, that is probably going to be fairly sporadic on our part.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I imagine
we're
we'll
going to
have
do our
some
best.
stuff where we do what we can. Hopefully YouTube will get around to approving me for live streaming on my end. Right now, They said it could take up to 24 hours, and I'm currently at a screen that just says, whoops, it's taking longer than it meant to, because it was slightly over 24 hours ago that I requested that capability. But I imagine they've gotten a number of requests kind of related to this particular event.
We are definitely going to do our absolute best to stay on top
Yes.
of it as much as possible, but it may be something that you see more on our socials rather than a live stream. But once we have a new pope and we know who he is, we are definitely going to get to work telling you everything we can find out about them. Hopefully it'll be somebody that we've had on our radar so that we can use the material that we've been preparing to discuss.
Do we want,
speculate.
I think infrastructure wise, I think we could do this. Do we just want to just open up Adopt a Cardinal just generally to, people that just want to like email in maybe to Pontifacts?
Sure. If they would like to shoot their shot and claim a cardinal, but I think people in the live stream get first priority. So.
Yes, absolutely. So live stream claimants can bump anyone who comes in via other means. But if you're not able to make the live stream, then yes, you can email, was it pontifactspod@gmail.com?
Yeah.
Or popularhistory@gmail.com.
Send us your top 3 picks in case you get bumped.
Yes. I got bumped.
Oh, Terry's tuning in from St. Clair Shores in Michigan.
Early.
Well, less early than it is here.
True. I guess
It's 6 o'clock.
It'd be 6 a.m. there. It's still 5 here.
It's starting to be normal morning hours.
Normal morning hours. Joy is still like, what are you doing?
Yes, I'm still on my upper level, so I don't think the Corkies have fully registered that someone's up and about. Or they did, and they decided to go back to sleep, which is exactly what they should do.
So Joy started out napping over by the door where she normally naps, and then she has slowly been inching closer and closer to me. She's now like almost directly under my orange chair. And
She's going to be
looking up at me like, what are you doing? Every time I move, she's like, what are you doing?
Ooh, the miters are back.
It's miter time.
They are preparing for the transition.
So I finally have Carlos's choice of Cardinal Zuppi logged, which is good because he made that like over an hour ago. Gradually going back through the chat. So yes, chat does get first priority. But again, if you reach out via other means, I think it does work fairly well where if you just want to list off a few cardinals, put the one that you would want first, because I'm just going to do it kind of in the order that I see them on the list for simplicity. But yes, that way if the one you list is already claimed, because I'm not going to be very good about updating this list. If you have seen my website, it talks about how I'm going to start having a daily show in like June 2023. So yeah, I just know this about myself, but I will be keeping a list, and when the time comes, we will make sure that it is all scrubbed up proper so we can know who won, who picked the Pope.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think you'll probably be able to suggest a title that you would like to receive. As long as it's
again,
PG-13.
These cardinals are not quite finding the precision of the movements or the lines as they start filing out. Now, one thing I did want to acknowledge on this live stream as well,
surprisingly chaotic.
Since we've been talking about the Popeular and the cardinals and who's likely to be the next pope, I want to acknowledge the papability index.
Oh, I like selfie guy. Sorry.
Oh, selfie guy?
Yeah, there was a guy totally
taking
doing
a selfie?
Deacon.
Oh my gosh. Sir.
Actually, that's probably priest because he's got the double still thing going on.
So let's briefly acknowledge.
Sides, it's a priest.
Let's briefly acknowledge Gabe from the Papability Index, who is currently far too busy to try and find his way onto any of these live streams or conversations. However, his predictions have updated quite dramatically in some ways. The general list is fairly consistent from when we last talked to him, but there has been one really big upset that we need to talk about, which is that his current or top scorer and most likely candidate to be elected pope is now Cardinal Prevost from who was born in Chicago and has served most of his ministry in Peru, but is an American cardinal, followed by Lacroix, who is Canadian. And then we have Tagle, who was originally and for almost the whole time up until February his highest scoring or most likely candidate. Then we have Langlois and Tempesta, Brenes, Erdo, and Storla ranking out his cardinals with a papability index below 1. The lower the number, the better. Then in the next grouping we have, and this one surprises me a little, we have Kutwa, Mothi, Turkson, Parolin, DeRocha, Bo, Rolls, Scherer, Rilko, Ribat, and Furtado. Those are not a lot of names that appear on most Apabili lists. So that's quite a surprise. But it's changed a fair bit on the lower end of that, and then again at the top of that, with Prevost taking the number 1 spot. He jumped up dramatically from like 121st place to 1st.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Do we have organs?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I love an organ.
These cardinals are really giving me like kindergartners at a procession for their first like show.
Yeah, they have it
Organ
quite
is very
figured
much
out.
a traditional, church music instrument, for sure.
Organs are probably my favorite instrument. I love the sound of an organ. I think they're incredible. Especially when they're used for not church music.
Well, here comes the people here to carry the casket.
Yeah. Probably the papal gentleman.
Do we need this many people if he's not as heavy?
You really don't want to drop him.
Yeah, can you imagine?
And it's hot. It's also like half a mile, maybe longer.
It's a long way to carry.
If they're just going to carry him.
Oh no, I'm fairly certain that they are
as a
placing
hearse?
him on a car. They are not walking all the way to Santa Maria Maggiore.
That would be kind of cool, though.
Oh, so they're doing an elevation situation. Or is that just because of the steps, or is that for display?
I'm fairly certain
certainly
this is for
appears
the
to be.
display purposes. I do love, again, how simplistic this is and how very Francis that is. That is his papal coat of arms there. Get the
IHS, the in hoc signo, sort of the same thing that we had with Constantine. It's sort of that.
I feel like one of those guys is trying way harder than the other ones. Like a group project here.
He's the mindset, grindset papal gentleman.
So we have
Catherine's choice recorded.
So we have it was his papal coat of arms. But we also have his motto, which is Miserando atque eligendo, which translates to by having mercy by choosing him. So again, which is a quote from Bede, by the way. So
ultimately it's a quote from the Gospel of Matthew. But yes, Pope Francis does specifically call out Bede as
Bede's homily,
yes, the reference, which it's interesting that Francis was reading Bede, since English is not his native tongue, or in like his, I would say probably certainly not in his top 3 languages.
It's a language he famously said he was particularly terrible at. Here we go. We are seeing Pope Francis leave St. Peter's Square for the final time. Actually going to
goodbye forever.
Yeah, this is the moment. It's the real goodbye, really.
I feel like the carrying mechanism weighs as much as the coffin from the looks of it.
Mm-hmm.
I also hate how tiny of steps they have to take. I'm surprised no one's tripped yet.
There's so many of them that they don't really have the space for that.
No room to trip.
No room to trip.
Oh, this is just a very awkward gate. I am very glad that
Oh,
they are going
yeah.
to be putting him onto a car where he can be
Yeah, they look like they
smoothly
should be singing Les Mis. Dun, dun. Now they're gonna go do steps. Oof.
I hope they practiced.
Goodbye, father, teacher, and poet. The youth, something. Not very good at Spanish.
Mhm.
Oh, this is an angle. This is like a movie.
Mhm.
Oh, that's surreal to have that be the live angle. That's got to be drone action.
It's got to be.
Someone's doing well though. Someone planned this.
Yeah, this is the military precision that we've been missing the whole time.
Yeah, with the cardinal lines and the shambling papal gentleman.
So notably, this moment where they're carrying him through, this is known as sort of like the door of death that they pass through. And generally, this is when they would go to the Vatican grottos for the burial. They are going to take him out of the backside and to Santa Maria Maggiore, to his tomb. Have you guys
Everybody's
seen
like,
the tomb
no,
yet?
we gotta hurry up. We gotta go. We gotta
Yeah.
follow.
And Terry Boyle, I have your choice of Cardinal Bow recorded. So just to run through where we're at, Cardinal Arborelius is Trocanero. Cardinal Bow is T. Boyle. I believe that's Terry. Bree, you have, of course, Konrad Krajewski.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Fry, Pierre Battista Pizzaballa. Roland Barrett has adopted Cardinal Tagle. Strong choice if you're in it to win it. I guess I did Cardinal Paraline, but I haven't actually recorded that yet or noted that yet. So let me jot that down. And then we have Carlos Martin. Carlos, you have Matteo Maria Zuppi. An excellent choice. And then Giovanni Battista Re. If I didn't mention your name, I may have overlooked it, so I apologize. Feel free to just reach out, let us know. If you can point out, just
Cardinals, get
let
in
us know.
line.
We'll figure it out. If you got a timestamp on the chat, then I can verify that.
There's
and we'll figure it out.
literally a railing. Scoot your butt up against
Yeah, just
it.
go back.
Such
Go
a
back, make this-
shambles. Who's in charge of the ceremony? I guess again, it's like how do you tell the
Ravelli?
Pope? How do you tell the Pope where to stand? Like Ravelli,
Yeah.
get some discipline up in these cardinals.
Oh, James took Nichols, so you're going to have to make sure you got him.
And that's the issue. Ravelli's not a cardinal, so they're just like whatever, dude.
It's very much like kindergartners. Come on. You're way past that age. You can get in line.
So have you guys seen the tomb yet?
Yes.
I've seen, just a little glance
The
here and
pictures
there.
that are here that are up.
Mm-hmm. It's very simple and very different from what we can expect. And well, I shouldn't say very different, because actually the tombs that are in the Vatican grottos are quite simple as well, but they're sort of stylistically so, in the sense that they're like very sleek and stylized to be like one another. But as like an front-facing public monument, it is very simple and very humble compared to what we see, for example, in St. Peter's.
Yeah. And James,
could
I had
this
not
gentleman not center better. Goodness.
James, I do recall you picking Nichols. I had not indeed recorded that, so that is in there now. Thank you. And there's a reason that I ask you guys to help point out if I am slipping on that tracking. So
well, we've actually had a very a robust chat. I'm so glad that so many of you came to join us for this, because again, it being very early in the morning here, I was not sure how much of an audience or a community that we would have going here for today. So that has been nice. Not that we wouldn't still be doing this.
Right.
Yeah, we'd still be
Yeah.
here.
We've committed to the process.
Yes. Yeah, I've been going without an audience for 5 years. I'm not going to stop now. Certainly not right now.
It's
Live
funny
stream is always
because
challenging.
Shout out to my audience, the people who I just completely discounted. I love you guys. I'm just throwing the insults all day today.
we were starting and it was like, ooh, 3 people. And Greg's like, those are just my children.
Yeah, I'm like,
because they
2 of those are my
turned
kids.
Terry, yes, Gregg got your choice of bow.
Yes.
Oh, we're ringing the bell. Is it
Which
going to
is
ring?
an excellent choice. So yes,
88
I
times.
meant to
88
mention,
times?
yes, Cardinal Bo is from Myanmar, formerly Burma, a country which is certainly having adventures, so keep them in prayer, which unfortunately is the case with a lot of these cardinals because it's the case with a lot of the world conflicts in a lot of places, and I know that weighed on Pope Francis's heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm fairly certain that one of his last acts was to publicly address that the ongoing suffering everywhere and looking for more prayer for the places that are being so tremendously tormented.
Yeah. That
which seems
statue,
like an
I don't think I've
absolutely
ever noticed it before.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not sure which one we're looking at, but this is
very profound. And here I'm
Missing
possibly not
an
even looking
arm.
at the next one. Yeah.
Well, they keep showing this arm statue. Maybe
yeah, it's quite an angle they chose there.
they've done it several times now. They're like this statue of no arm. Let's put that in the shot.
That obelisk, by the way, is thousands of years old.
I was
Brought over from Egypt.
So
yes.
I was watching the people below and I'm like, oh, the people who got to stand under it for the shade were probably like real smart. And I'm like, no way it's gonna move. The shade's gonna move.
Yes,
And
it
you
is.
can't move. You can't go, no, I'm gonna shuffle backwards a little.
You should never anticipate shade if you're going to be in St. Peter's Basilica. That's just not going to happen. Not anywhere.
If you go under those awnings over there, the pillars. But
look at that. That's 300,000 people.
Oh, it stopped. Oh, interesting.
Okay.
What's going on here?
Oh,
there we go.
I got a swirly gig.
Apparently, there was a technical error.
Oh, yeah. No, we had a guest speaker streaming in at work at the library, and I got to help troubleshoot. That's how bad it got.
Oh.
It mainly was that one of the microphones was off when it shouldn't be. So, hey, I got to reinforce my reputation as a person who knows
I'm
audio.
glad that it decided to break now.
Yeah, no kidding. This is probably them starting to wind down because, again, the papal procession is going towards a private burial.
They're shutting off the big bandwidth valve. There's like a crank
they
thing
that
they're closing the flow of information.
Because I'm not having any trouble hearing you guys, so it's not on my end.
It's definitely not the internet.
No, the Vatican as a whole is buffering.
I had the feed open as well, and it has frozen on that end as well. So interesting.
All right.
Well, this might give us a good end point then, if we're going to lose our live stream.
Gonna follow the procession, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a little ominous though. Because Pope Francis was the last one on that prophecy of the popes of St. Malachi, right?
Actually, that's a good place to acknowledge, because we are planning on doing an episode on the conspiracy theories around Pope Francis being the last pope and all of those things. Okay, now we've got cardinals milling, sort of. Sort of.
Yes.
But maybe that is a natural place to end our live stream for today. So thank you so much for being here, everyone. Really appreciate you coming and hanging out with us and asking
None of
your
those
questions.
Cardinals was Cardinal Ray, by the way.
Cardinal Ray has earned a sit down and a rest, I think.
He
Well,
sure
they-
has.
He let him ride in the car as they go on. So I guess we can say on that note, you can expect more coverage from us. We're going to do our best.
Some
There's
fashion. Yeah.
There's an episode that Fry and I put together revisiting our Sound Education 2019 presentation on the wildest papal elections in history, which should be out in the next couple of days. We are going to do a conspiracy theory episode. I also was on the radio yesterday with NPR and a UCLA sociology professor who is interested in doing an episode on the sociology of popes. So we'll be bringing that up during the Sede Vacante period. And then we'll do more talking about the cardinals and who can be the next pope.
Yeah.
So again, Greg, is there anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just a quick mention, because I mentioned this at one point, but it's worth a reminder. With the Adopt a Cardinal program, really any unbaptized Catholic male is a papabili if you stretch the definition enough, because they do not have to stick with the cardinal, so neither do you. If you know any baptized Catholic males that you want to go ahead and have be your Adopt a Cardinal pick, that's fine. I'm not changing the title to Adopt a Baptized Catholic Male. But we're keeping it as called
Unmarried
Adopt a Cardinal,
baptized
but it could
Catholic
be
male.
yes, whatever the right thing is. I feel like I said unbaptized a couple times, so
You're
right
tired. Go
qualifications.
to bed, Greg.
Yes, I think it is time for all of us to go and crash and have a good sleep.
Yes.
I guess we should finish by just saying goodbye to Pope Francis. You know, I again just want to reflect really briefly on the fact that without him there would be no Pontifacts, and the impact he has had on us has been tremendous, and I don't think any of us are ever going to forget that.
They're doing
So,
a loop now.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
not
we're
new
looping.
things.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is almost looking like AI generated Cardinals milling Tom.
Which means it's time for bed. So good night, everyone. Thank you so much for being
night.
here. Good morning,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you for being here. And we
Yeah.
will see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.